what happened. There's so much poker strategy out there that we can't shoot everybody, right? But we could debate. Maybe we should have shot the first person who decided to write a poker book. That way, no one else would have wrote a poker book, and that way we wouldn't be training the entire world in 2020.
I think I like the training aspect of the game, though. I think that that's some of the most, like, the collaboration and the process of learning, especially when the tools are really good, is awesome.
No, I think that we should have shot him. Guys, we're here. We're live. Brandon Poker Life Podcast. Big Poppy, a.k.a. Joinger One, live from GTO headquarters in Las Vegas, Nevada. We're here with the best motherfucking podcast in the motherfucking world. I don't care what anybody out there says. This is the best podcast that exists on the entire planet that have ever existed in the history of a poker podcast. And listen, man, I'm excited. I'm ready to get after it, man. It's been a great week. High stakes pot limit Omaha week. We got the biggest giveaway, the greatest giveaway in the history of giveaways going on right now. It's a Vegas experience for someone that signs up with the new Upswing Poker pot limit Omaha course in the link below. We're flying. I don't know if we're flying them out to Vegas. Hopefully they're already out in Vegas, right? That would be the ideal scenario, is they're here in Vegas and we take them out a 2, 3, maybe a 4-day bender. I don't know what's going to happen. It might be a 1-day bender. It might be a 2-day bender. I think it's going to be a 2-day bender, but it's going to be one of the sickest experiences ever in the history of that person's life, most likely, if they're from the Midwest and their life's kind of fucking boring. It just is good. It is what it is. I mean, that is what it's going to be. It's going to be awesome. Dr. GTO will be there. Big J, Jonah, Hungry Man, a.k.a. Wizard, a.k.a. hide your friends, hide your girlfriend. Don't bring a girlfriend on the Wizard, man. You might take a snap. You might take a bite at her, but it is what it is. This week, high stakes pot limit Omaha videos coming up. Live at the bike, pot limit Omaha tomorrow and on Thursday. High stakes action. Dylan's going to be on there. Chris will be on there. And that's it. Next week, Spraggy's on my podcast. My man Spraggy, I love that fucking kid, on Tuesday. David Skolansky, the legend of poker, on Wednesday. And we're going to get my man Doug Polk on the podcast, too. That's it. Joining me today on the podcast, a young man. We call him the fine doctor of Dr. GTO. He's a man who apparently didn't know how to put a light in his goddamn face over here, but he's got a lot of great wisdom to say. He's the guy I go to when I want to get fired up for life. He was a part of my video yesterday when we broke down the Zygmunt hand. He's been breaking down hands with me all week on here. He's the fine Dr. GTO, pot limit Omaha enthusiast, lover of the great game, high stakes pot limit Omaha player. We have Dylan Weisman, a.k.a. Dr. GTO. What's up, doctor? How are you doing?
Joey, that was a wonderful introduction, and it is a pleasure to be here. Anytime I get to chat with you, I take it as as something that I'm grateful for. So the fact that I love having conversations with you, and the fact that we get to do this pod makes me even more stoked.
We do talk a lot. I probably talk to Dylan more than any other podcast guest I've had on anytime recently. So this will be like a regular convo here. So I'd say maybe Jonah is probably the person I talk to the most. But can we really get a light on your face? What do you think? Maybe we put a. What do you think about it? You in? You down for some light on the face? What's going on, everybody? We're here on YouTube. We're on Twitch right now. If you're on iTunes, smash that motherfucking subscribe button on iTunes if you're on there. I've been uploading my podcast to iTunes. It turns out a lot of people are listening on iTunes because I'm getting thousands of downloads on there. So I feel super happy that I took a year off from downloading them on iTunes. That was a very smart idea by me. I'm a genius, and yeah. Okay, we got some light. Here we go. Okay,
is that better?
Is cool. Dylan, how's it going, buddy? You've been streaming on Twitch. You've been doing the Bankroll Challenge. You've been getting in the streets. You've been becoming a figure in the poker community, I suppose, right? How's it been going, man?
That's a good question. So the streaming has been amazing. I could not be happier with how the stream turned out. The Bankroll Challenge, I don't know if you know this, but pot limit Omaha has lots of variants. And so we started at 5K, got back up to 13, down to about like 5.5 again. And that's fun because now we get to see the whole process of going through swings, showing people what that looks like, what it really looks like to be grinding every day in these games, in these modern games. And so that's been awesome. But I'm actually blown away by the Twitch experience. As you know, I pretty much for my entire existence was a behind the scenes human when it came to like operations, when it came to building projects. And so putting myself in the front of the camera versus behind the camera has been a challenging and rewarding and eye-opening experience, especially because of how much positive feedback I've gotten from the community. Everyone has just been like super wonderful and kind, and it's like they're asking questions, they're doing so 98% of the time in a nice way, and I just like I'm actually blown away by the positivity, and also that like the shit blew up on Twitch. I wasn't expecting to have a Twitch stream, and then like shit blew up, and that's really cool. So that's been an amazing experience to just like be able to kind of plug and play and have a Twitch environment and get to be the center of that and be the driving force for it. I've really enjoyed it.
How long you been doing this for?
3 weeks.
We'll see. Let's see how this positivity lasts, man. I mean, listen, it's
Yeah.
I think that's the new experience. You do some stuff, you do a stream, you do some content. People are pouring in. They like what you got to do. They give you some suggestions how to get better. Then at some point in time, it starts changing over, and you start noticing the negative comments a little bit more. And eventually, the negative comments can get to you more and more and more, unless you can kind of put them to the backside, put them away. Like some of these guys, right? They come in here. They say some dumb shit, right? We try to get rid of them. So, kind of, I've been thinking, I actually want to talk about the idea of censorship a lot. I've been researching a lot of China lately. And, another topic for another podcast, debatably, right? This is the Poker Life Podcast. Let's keep it on track. Poker. Let's keep it poker, Dylan. So today we're going to talk about the Galfond Challenge starting up again tomorrow. We're going to talk about the new Omaha course in Upswing Poker that you and Chris helped to create up there as well. We're going to talk about the state of Omaha itself. If the game's dead, or can no one win ever again? Oh my God, is there So tell people, because you've been on my podcast before, you've done commentary with me before on Live at the Bike. I brought you with me out there. I brought you with me to World Series Poker. Got to play on Live at the Bike. As you're going to be playing this week. So why don't you tell people a little bit about your background in terms of what you've done in the corporate world, because you definitely hustled pretty hard and had some pretty interesting jobs outside of poker space as well.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. So quick TLDR is that I went to school for financial math and statistics, which is pretty much probability theory. During college, I was playing poker until Black Friday, and then was actually probably one of the more fortunate humans that Black Friday happened, because it forced me to transition out of the poker headspace and become a more well-rounded human being. So I was able to integrate in an amazing friend group, learn how to learn how to be myself, maybe is a good way of describing it, instead of solely focusing on poker. And then after college, I transitioned into a career in analytics, and then eventually business intelligence analytics, and then product design, project management, growth marketing. And while that was all happening, I was still playing poker simultaneously. And something that was very interesting about playing poker during the time of this more non-poker professional transition is that I heavily saw the overlap between the two. And then, so like the Venn diagram between the corporate world and the poker world became very apparent to me. And I started to see where there was dissonance, where they didn't work together. And I started to see where there was amazing overlap. Like my friend Matt Coletta always says, poker players either are the absolute best or the absolute worst employees or entrepreneurs. Because if you're a poker, so a great example is Doug Polk, because he worked incredibly hard to get to the top of the poker world. And then he took that same work ethic, the same critical thinking ability, the same humbleness that you need to get to the top of the poker world. Yeah, you need to be humble. Doug is a humble dude. I know that you're saying the thing.
What are you talking? First of all, stop it. Stop it.
What? He is.
No.
Yes, he is.
What are you talking about?
Yes, he is. What do you, dude?
I cannot believe what I've just heard. My man Doug Polk humble in the same sentence. We must know a different guy. I mean, listen, as someone who's talked to Doug Polk a lot in the life, but humble never struck me as the word I've been using about my man Doug Polk.
You can be humble and confident simultaneously.
Humble.
Doug is an incredibly confident person, obviously, but he's also humble.
Let me look up humble. Let me just make sure I have the definition correct, because I feel like I'm missing something. Having or showing modest or low estimates of one's own importance. Okay, I'm gonna disagree with you on that. Let's just continue on.
Okay, whatever. What I'm saying is that the traits that make you a very, very talented poker player and get you to the top also will get you to the top in the business world, as long as you can apply it effectively. One of the main things being like the emotional control and the consistency that you need to get to the top. Obviously, problem solving and all that jazz is incredibly important. But when I was, like, for example, at my first job as an analyst, I could see the entire environment that my company had created as a system in order to get people to work together effectively. I could see how the interaction between humans was designed in such a way to try to get them to work optimally, and how it was broken in some ways. And my background in poker gave me that viewpoint. And so I was able to continue to use that same sort of human logical problem solving background and apply that to different projects in my professional career. What's also really cool is that my professional career definitely helped my poker when I came back to it, because the main thing that I learned at the beginning of my career was AI. And so, like, the first company that I worked for was a machine learning driven digital advertising company. And so I was heavily in the machine learning, artificial intelligence streets. And then I also worked on a project helping to build out a high frequency trading bot in the cryptocurrency space. And so through my professional endeavors, it became incredibly apparent to me how important the facets of machine learning are, and how we live in a world where that's going to be dictating the next, like that is going to dictate the meta in whatever you're doing. It's going to dictate the meta in business. It's going to dictate the meta socially. Like we are socially manipulated by machine learning and artificial intelligence at a heavy rate.
Are we doing that? Are we doing we're being manipulated by technology conversation now, or do you want to save that till the second half of the pod?
We can save.
We can get that. We can get into that right now if you want. Okay, so
I'm down. So let's do it. You want to?
You want to get into it right? You want to hop in? You want to hop in? That's what they come here for.
Right in.
They came here to learn about China censorship, and they came here to learn about being exploited by algorithms and machine learning, who are these algorithms that are being designed by very smart people. That's what they. Nope, they didn't come here for that one. Save that for the second half of the podcast.
Okay, we'll save it for the second half.
Yeah,
I'll get back.
I love
to
that
it.
topic though. We're going down.
I'm super down, dude. I'll get in on that topic. I've thought about that shit a bunch. Because that's literally what my first job was. It was using machine learning to manipulate your buying patterns using data feedback loops. This shit's crazy. But like when I got back to poker. So I transitioned back in. I've been slowly soft in poker for that whole time, and then transitioned back fully about a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. And the first thing that I learned when talking with Fees was that Munker Solver was a real thing. And I was like, okay, what's the new meta? And he's like, well, the people that are the best are the ones that are using the solving software. And so that became my goal, was to transition into that modern style. Obviously, it's still really important to not give up all of the poker learnings that I'd done since I started playing when I was 12 or whatever. But having been in the corporate and the business ecosystem and seeing how effective machine learning was, it was just and AI and modeling. I was like, well, this exists in poker. Obviously, this is going to crush everybody. And because there was always this logical fallacy that PLO was too complicated to solve. And I still see that on my chat today in Twitch. Like yesterday, someone was like, "Oh, there's no way PLO can be solved. It's too big of a game tree," and that's just factually incorrect. You would just need a bigger computer to solve the entire game tree, but you don't need to solve the entire thing. You just need to solve parts of it, and then build heuristics and build systems off of those solved solutions, and then you can actually apply that shit in real time. And so that became my main focus. And then eventually, when I met Chris, who's one of the end bosses on solvers, it really shifted me into high gear and getting into this new mindset. And so it's been really cool having this transition between poker and non-poker, because the two are so symbiotic. The better I get at poker, the better I get at business. The better I get at business, the better I get at poker. And that's been a really cool process for me in terms of my learning and growing development.
Very interesting. That was a very longer answer I was anticipating.
You asked me a question. You want me to answer it or not?
I mean, listen, I know I like the answer to the question you have. I never know where your answers are going to take me, Dylan. They take me down a path, right? It's like we go down the hole. It's like it's like one of those bubblegum machines, right? But instead of it coming out, the bubblegum at the end, the one hole, there's 1,000 holes, and you never quite know where it's going to go, but you're mentally prepared, and you're always on point, ready to go down any hole wherever it's going to go. So it's always an enjoyable experience. So basically what you're saying, Dylan, is that that's what I like doing. I like taking the Dylan thoughts and then maybe put them into the more of the Jim from Kentucky. Jim from Kentucky's watching the pod, and he kind of wants to figure out what's happening right now. So it sounds like what you're saying is that when you were in the business world, it came at a really great time for you to get your life under control, to learn more about yourself. And then through the business world, you understood the importance of machine learning and how technology can influence people's behaviors, and it can influence success at what someone's trying to do. And then once you came back into playing a lot more poker, you started to realize how powerful these solvers and these machine learning programs and this technology that's in poker now, how powerful that can be for poker players in terms of actually getting better at the game. And then it kind of came into creating this course, which you met Chris is very, very obsessed with the solvers and very much into studying with that. And then you guys formed a very great relationship, mm-hmm. which led you to produce this course in the position that you're in now with the knowledge that you have. And then throughout this process, what you've learned and what you've done has made you not only better at poker, but better at business in general. And there's a symbiotic relationship between the two.
Hell yeah. That was eloquent as fuck.
Bam!
Eloquent
listen,
AF,
we're
my
in.
friend. Great job, dog.
Amen. Glory be to the God. I mean, listen, I thought I had it, but I was trying to put it into I was trying to condense it down. I'm like an aggregator of thoughts here. So, okay, so now we end up here, right? So why did you decide you want to get back with this course? Because I know that you have a lot of opportunity at business. You could work with I mean, listen, I think you can get a job with almost any company out there in the entire world if you really want to get a job with any company in the entire world. So why choose the poker space now, and why continue to play poker?
That's a really good question. And I think so. I had 3 failed launches before this project, and that took a really tough toll on me. It's challenging to build things as an entrepreneur and fail consistently, and that happens to a lot of entrepreneurs. I knew going into it that the probability of my projects being successful would be low, and so I'm kind of emotionally prepared for it, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt every single time. And so when I decided I kind of transitioned back into poker because it's something I was always able to find success at, literally from a young age. Like in middle school, in high school, in college, like at every point in my life, I'd always been able to learn what the most effective tools were for getting better at poker, and then use those to be successful. And so I used to live with Fees, and they were scrambling to find a PLO coach for this course, and I was going to try to help him find a PLO coach. And then one day it just occurred to me, because I've been playing a lot of PLO, that if I was working with someone who was really up to date with the current meta, like such as Chris, that I would have all the tools necessary to build this project. And it felt like something that I knew I could do well. Mm-hmm. And something that's really important, I think, when you're on a downswing, is to find wins. It's like if you're feeling depressed, like you can classify anything as a win. Just getting out of bed is a win that day if you're suffering through depression, and that's something that I focus on. And so this was that for me. Like I was in a downswing professionally in terms of having projects not work, and I didn't want to transition back into a more corporate structure because it doesn't feel healthy for me. And so and plus the Upswing dudes are awesome. I love working with Fees. I love working with Matt. I love working with Doug. I love working with Brady. They're all wonderful humans. And so this project seemed like a really good opportunity for me to take everything that I've ever been good at, including project management, product development, poker, relationship building in terms of building the correct team with Chris, take all these skills that I felt confident in and use them on one this project really felt like my coming of age in terms of all the skills that I built in my entire life. Mm-hmm. And to have that sort of an opportunity and to be able to see it as a spot, to be able to see, wait, I can build this, I can build it well. And it's going to push me, like, for example, I knew that we'd have to turn either me or Chris into a Twitch person for this thing to work, because Doug has had a ton of success on Twitch and selling courses. And so I knew that it would also push me into learning a new skill set, which was content creation. All of those things together made this course feel like such a prime opportunity for me. And it felt like it felt correct. And I think in life, when you see an opportunity that just makes sense, they don't come around very often. And so if that happens, and you don't capitalize on it, you're going to feel that void in yourself. You're going to feel a void of you having missed that opportunity. And I just saw this as a spot, and it felt like a good spot. And I knew it would help me grow, and that I had a high probability of being successful at it, which was important to me at this point in my life and my career. And so I took the opportunity to build this course, and I'm incredibly happy with the entire process and how it turned out.
So yeah, Lemon Poker points out, so you went into poker to lower your variance, because in the business world, there was a lot of variance in terms of having success there. So you're like, well, I mean, this is kind of easy to do. I've been trying to tackle these other bigger projects, and I've learned these things, and I've picked up these skills, and now I think I can use these skills in this area and have success with it.
Yeah, that's a really good way of saying it. Like it's weird to say that poker is less variance than some of the other things I've taken, but I'm for sure, I get after it when it comes to, like, I'm not scared of variance, because I know that the spots that have the higher variance also a lot of the times have the highest expected value, because people are too scared to enter those spaces.
Right.
And so there's lots of opportunity to be had. But that doesn't mean, like, I'm still a human though. And when you get just kicked in the face repeatedly for years, literally on your projects, no matter, even though I've had success in my career in the past and I've been able to build projects and have them work, mm-hmm. And was successful at poker for a long time, that doesn't mean that those failures didn't affect my soul, and that right. I didn't need to build something that would make me feel good and that I could be proud of, not just in terms of the output, but I knew I'd be proud of the process for building this course. I knew I could do a good job, no matter how many courses we sold, of making something that was really fucking good. And that was the most important thing to me.
So what you're saying, Dylan, is that your confidence was hurt a little bit because of these failures at business, because you set the bar for success a lot higher than maybe a normal person might set the bar for success. Therefore, you came into this course and you wanted to put your all into it and put your heart and soul and effort into it, because you knew that this would get you back on the right track for feeling confident in your life, and therefore allow you to move forward, building on that confidence even further, ready to tackle the world again. Right?
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Bam, motherfucker. I mean,
Dude,
listen, man. This is really cheap. I know you well, though.
I love it, dude. Yeah, this is fucking great. Thank you. Like, this is helpful. We're gonna use this. I needed, like, this is super, like, Em does the same thing for me. We were writing my website copy today, and I would say something out loud, and she goes, Dylan, those words are not the words that the humans want to hear. Like, I need you to translate these words. I hired my friend Rachel as a copywriter for my website because I knew that I could just tell her the things that I wanted on there, and then she could make it look pretty, and then Em could also help with that. Mm-hmm. So having you do this for me is A+.
Well, like, listen, we did the PLO videos together, and then as you're talking, I'm like, let's word that differently, right? And it's like, we could talk like that, right? I mean, I don't mind. I don't mind if we want to get more technical and want to get more of these kind of deeper words that have similar meanings, more relatable words, and we could do that. But I understand the audience out there; they want to kind of understand what's happening a little bit. Sometimes you just got to help them out, right? I know my man Jerry from Kentucky, right? I know him and his cousin Jimmy. You know what I mean? They might not always.
They're really nice guys, like wonderful people.
Yeah, we're trying to help them out, man. We're trying. Yeah. Scott said, "I say one thing. I love the hand reviews of this guy street by street. Now let's watch him on a much longer podcast. I like it. It's what I like to hear, Scott." Thanks, Bad Scott. Gamer. He says, I blasted easy 60 hours. These pods, love them. Made me look at my life and made some good changes. Amen. That's what I like to hear, man. So Dylan kind of courses out, right? You're streaming on Twitch. You're playing a lot of Potlin, Omaha. What do you think about the state of Potlin, Omaha? Because you've been playing a lot of live poker out here in Vegas. You've been playing a lot on WorldSeriesPoker.com. What are your thoughts on what you're seeing up there?
Let's talk about live first, and then we'll talk about WSOP. So live, Potlin, Omaha right now, there's still a lot of value to be had, in my opinion. The 1-2 games have high rake, but you can definitely make an hourly rate out of it that'll sustain you at least to build yourself up. The 5-5, 5-10 games, they're reg heavy, but a lot of the regs don't have modern fundamentals. And so if you put it in work, those games are very beatable. The most challenging thing about the live ecosystem currently is just the infestation of private games and being able to scale past the 5-10, 25, 25, 25, 50 range. Because like I literally experienced this personally. I will show up to the casino, they'll be playing a game, and they will literally make the game private so that I can't sit in it sometimes. I've had that happen to me at the Aria. I show up, they're playing a 51 game. I'm like, hey, can I come sit down? There's 3 open seats. And they're like, oh, we're not sure if this is going to be a reserve game or not, which means they're going to pay extra rate to make it private. And I get it. Like, I understand what they're doing, but that's something that's really frustrating as somebody who puts in a ton of work into their game, because the ability to earn the most money in the live ecosystem is heavily dictated on your ability to network. And I don't want to play that game as like, that game's not as important to me. What's important to me is to like get good at poker, become a better person, build my personal relationships that I care about the people. Like it takes so much time to maintain the relationships for the people that you love in your life. And I don't want to have to waste that bandwidth on building these fake poker relationships so I can get into good games. And that's unfortunately what the state is, even in PLO at the higher stakes. And that's not to say that I can't get into those games. Like over the summer, I can get into the big games. Like Burger actually is nice about doing that. Most of the private games.
Oh, we're gonna name names here. Oh, I didn't know. We name a name. I mean, we can name names. I don't mind. We can talk about the people.
I'm only gonna name positives.
You tell me what you'd like to do, and I'm down for whatever. I'm
only gonna name positives. I'm not gonna name negatives. Is what I'm gonna do. Okay. So I'm gonna give people positives when they do good things, and I'm not gonna highlight people for being bad. But so like I can get into the game sometimes, especially over the summer when they need more people to fill the seats. But generally it's frustrating, and that's something you need to be aware of in the live ecosystem. That doesn't mean that you can't make a very good living though in like the 5-10 and quarter games, because those games are still incredibly. I'm sorry for all the Aria regs that are watching this. I know that we're boys, but boys and girls, shout out to Sasha.
Did you say the 25 50 regs?
No, like the 5-10 regs, like the rock reg, regs at the Aria.
I got a different viewpoint on this, Dylan, but I'd like to continue. I'd like you to continue on here.
Okay. No, I would actually love to hear a different viewpoint than mine. Okay. I think those games are still beatable. I think that especially if you put in a lot of work, because those games they're still, it's like No Limit Hold'em in 2011 or whatever, where if you are 4-betting somebody, you have aces every time, kind of a thing. That still exists in the live arena. And if you can learn the more modern tools and apply them to live games, you can still make a lot of money. You can still do really well. And so I don't want to to negate people from approaching that as a career opportunity or something they want to work at, because if you work really hard, you can for sure still be successful. And what's really cool about becoming successful in that ecosystem is that you can take the same tools that you use, like building the process and like the emotional control, everything that you need to be successful in that ecosystem, and then just once you kind of hit your cap there, transition out of it. And so it's in no way a negative thing to try to beat live games for a high clip in 2020. I think it's actually something that's good to do, because you can make money at it and you can get better at the skills you need to be successful outside of poker. But if you're trying to make like $5 million at poker, that's going to be capped to you unless you heavily network.
Right. Yeah, I think you touched on a few different things there. And I think sort of what you talk about the private games is that's right. The evolution of poker evolves. So if poker evolves to more private games, that means that being able to get in those games becomes a skill of poker. Yep. So people say, I don't want to do that. Well, then that's fine, right? But that's maybe what's needed to be able to make money as a poker player, or you have to better your other areas in terms of how you win at the game. And also, if the games here are a certain way, well, then that's where you have to start traveling more. So there are some things that you can still do if you're so inclined to want to do so, but not everybody's going to want to do that. They just want to go down the street to the casino and be able to play in the games. And maybe that used to work, but now that might not work for some people. So I think the game just evolves, and you have to evolve with it if you'd like to continue to play poker for a living. But with that said, there's still a great opportunity out there for you to make a living playing poker. Now, how much money you can make, and is it as much money as you could make before? I would debate that it's actually more money you can make now if you understand how to play the game on the full spectrum of things very well. And one of those things is navigating the private game world. So that's sort of how I look at it now, but I understand that for a lot of people out there, that's not going to be appealing to them. As you mentioned, right? You don't want to spend time in these relationships with these people who you would consider them fake relationships. I sort of look at it differently in terms of what those relationships are like, because if my job is playing poker, then those relationships are a part of my job in some ways. So if I'm probably not going to go down that route, because as you also said, you build up a lot of skills and a lot of abilities becoming great at poker, and a lot of those skills and abilities transfer over to doing anything else. So the ability to get better at something and study and work at your game and overcome failures are all very, very, very relevant in terms of the business world and content world, marketing world, all worlds basically.
Yeah.
So I think once you realize that and you find their opportunity, right, you say, well, I don't want to travel. I don't want to make these relationships. But for a lot of people out there, if that's what they had to do, it's not really fucking hard to do. It's just a matter of learning how to do those things and then executing on them.
That's a super valid, and in my opinion, that's a really good add-on to the things that I said, because I'm probably approaching it from a little bit of a salty perspective, because it's like you work really hard at something, you just want to be able to execute on it. And so I probably have a little bit of a cognitive bias there about not want, because I'm a little salty, like, right? And so I'm not wanting to make those relationships because I just worked really hard at my game. I'd like to just be able to execute on it, and it's become a politics game. And I completely agree with you that if you can play the politics game well, it might even be it's probably worth more. Like if you can get to a sufficient level of being good at poker and then put those extra hours of bandwidth into the politics game, that's the optimal allocation of resources to make the most, like a ton of money, right? Getting into those private games and being able to play them consistently. So I completely agree with you there. The same thing with the travel thing. For me personally, I don't want to go down that route, but I do agree with you that if you want to make money at poker, it's about adapting. And the best way to adapt is to, for lack of a better word, embrace the new ecosystem that exists.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's not quite the same as you can drive down the street every day and play the game, or you can go to your computer if you're not an online player and play the game. But there's still plenty of action to be found out there. There's still plenty of casinos. There's plenty of public games. There's plenty of private games. And your skill as a poker player is to be able to embrace that, navigate that. And now you could also argue in 2020, there's just a lot more opportunity out there for someone to make a living as an entrepreneur in terms of learning how to do a number of different things with the internet these days. And as new technology comes up there, that creates new openings that you could potentially do. So Definitely. You would say, well, is it worth doing this when I could potentially build this, or when I could learn how to trade? Now, I think there's arguments for either side, but I think what's cool about poker is that it is a competitive game where you compete against other people. You can immediately understand if you're getting better in terms of how you're understanding the specific strategies and all these different situations. And I find that whole entire process very enjoyable, and I find the community very enjoyable as well, too. Mm-hmm. So I think there are certain parts I really like about it that might not exist in other opportunities or other areas of the game. And some people are going to like it. Some people aren't going to like it. But I think a lot of people out there are very negative about the state of poker right now, and that's because they don't see it the same way, because they've been doing the same thing and the same habits for so long, and they're not really working at their game. They don't aspire to be great at the game anymore. They don't aspire to make a lot of money really at the game anymore, because in their mind they've given up on how to do that, and they don't really see a way to get to the point that they may have been in the past, because their mindset's just so fucked up because they've been playing for so long, and therefore their negative feelings about the game and the situations in the game, they sort of spread around the poker world, and other people are speaking about that more. But if you want to make it a positive experience, you can make it a positive experience. And if you don't want to make it a positive experience, your options are figure out how to change your mindset about it, or do something else. Because if you're great at poker and you can win at poker, you can win in a lot of other games out there. So it's just a matter of having the courage to be able to do something like that.
So all of that is like, you call me Dr. GTO. That's some GTO shit right there. That was A+ in terms of the way to approach the thing. It brings up 2 points for me. The first one is diversification of your bandwidth. So, and then the second one is how to really use poker as a training ground if you're starting from nothing. And so you made this point about like maybe finding something else to do if you're burnt out on poker. What I think a lot of people do is they over-index into something that doesn't make them happy. And if you've been playing poker for a long period of time, you're going to be less successful because you're less happy. And so for those people, doing a hard transition out of poker usually causes too much dissonance. Like, you've been playing poker for 10 years and then you're just going to do something else? That's shit. Like, that's not how you make transitions in life. But you can, when you start to feel those emotions, you can acknowledge that they're happening. You can say, okay, I need to make a change. I'm going to start building a plan to transition. I'm going to use poker and the freedom that poker gives me and the monetary resources that poker gives me to start and build a plan for myself to transition out of poker. So that's actually really cool, because it's kind of like the end game of poker. That's what you would do maybe when you want to transition out. The opposite side of the coin is using poker to maybe start your career and start transitioning into things. And if I were to, and I'm going to, this is, in addition to everything you said it holds firmly. And I want to add this point where if I were to be starting in poker today, I would not be focused on making money. Like, if that is your goal when approaching poker, and that's like the thing you're optimizing towards when starting out your career, that's not going to be you're losing a lot of EV by focusing on making the most money, because you're going to be less focused on building the process. So if you're being results oriented and just trying to make a ton of money, one, you're probably actually going to make less money, because that's not how the world works. The world works by building solid processes and repeating them. The majority of successful humans on this earth are ones that can build consistency into their process and just execute on it effectively. And so if you can, and obviously that doesn't count for like generational wealth and variance or whatever. I'm saying like self-made people usually have very good process. And so if you're starting your career, the most important thing to do is to take that as the mindset. And so that doesn't just mean, that means getting better at poker. That means in this ecosystem, maybe getting better at networking, because that's something you have to think about. It also means focusing heavily on your mental game, right? Making sure that you aren't just like waking up, looking at your phone, driving to the casino 20 minutes later and being groggy, and then drinking 4 cups of coffee and then a shot of vodka 4 hours later when you start to get like funky emotionally. It means building the process to sustainably make money at poker over time. It means waking up, taking care of your body, fostering relationships outside of poker, showing up to the poker room, having studied X amount of times that week, whatever is most optimal for you, and then being engaged, making sure that your brain feels healthy in that ecosystem. And so that's both sides of the coin. It's how to use poker to start your career, whether or not it be poker or outside of poker. Like, if you're maybe looking for direction and you want to use poker, focusing on the process is really cool. And then the opposite end of the coin, which is transitioning out of poker, right? And then like bringing full circle and using the money and the freedom and all those things you built from poker to then give yourself time and space to find what your next step is. Right?
So you,
and not
you
to
describe
force
what you describe what I've done basically.
Hell,
that's exactly what I've
both
done.
of us have done. Literally, it's what both of us have done. Like,
yeah.
it's the playbook that for those that have been able to transition into and out of poker effectively, that I've seen repeated with success, which is why I feel comfortable saying it as advice. Yeah, it's exactly like, and you and I talk about this shit literally all the time, right? Like, how to transfer out of poker, like what it means to transition out of poker. Because a lot of people have like this retirement idea. Some people are completely burnt out. They don't even want to touch the game. Some people still love the game. They just don't want it to be their source of income. I had a really good conversation with my therapist recently about burnout in poker. And because we were talking about how much I was going to play during the World Series this year. because I was like, I've just been putting in all of the solver work. I've been heavily focusing on getting very good at the game of poker. And so I have all this EV that I built up because now I'm much better at poker than I was last summer. I don't think people have gotten better as fast as I have over the past year because of the resources that I've had. Making this course got me way better at poker because it forced me to be in the lab literally every day. And so I have this mental projection of how much EV I've earned by putting in work, by putting in all this work. But that doesn't mean that I should play that much, because what happens, and it happens with the people that play poker over a long period of time, is that no matter how solid your mental game is, no matter how much work you put into your poker game, you've just been repeating the same process for years, like decades. I've been playing poker for 16 years at this point competitively, from the time I was 12 and I saw like Moneymaker when I had the flu on the couch. Like I started playing poker literally that my grandma taught me poker when I was 5 years old. And I was like, I'd started playing then online when I was 12 years old. I made an account in my dad's name. And what happened, it's kind of like an Olympic level athlete who's been training their entire life, and they're finally about to get to the Olympics, but every time they run, they have a long-term knee injury or something that acts up. And so if you run every once in a while and you like run at the sustainable rate, your knee injury won't act up. But if you're sprinting every single day, you're going to burn yourself out. And that's the analogy that she gave me. I've been like this. Yeah, I know. Right.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Sick one. Whoa. That's a sick analogy right there.
No, it's a really
wow.
good, no, it's a really good analogy.
I know, that's sick.
Yeah, and so that's what she said to me. She's like, you are this Olympic level sprinter who's been training your entire life. You're really good at what you do, but you've built up this prolonged use injury in your knee. And for me, it's in my soul. It's in my mental game. If I play poker 5 days a week for like, I'm starting to experience this on Twitch a little bit because I've just been putting in so many hours. I'm feeling this burnout in terms of the emotional interaction with the game. But if I'm playing like 10 to 15 hours a week and then doing all my other business stuff on the side, it's going to feel good because I'm not over indexing. I'm not overusing this tool. And then I still get the emotional, like the serotonin dump of me building this badass skill set and being able to execute on it. Like I don't have to leave that from my life. And I think that's something that a lot of people that are transitioning out of poker maybe don't have the perspective into, because they either just
think
see
so.
Maybe
they don't. I agree. Going on a ledge there, Dylan. I like that. That's a great take, buddy. I mean, I agree they don't, but now they're going to.
Yeah, and that's something that I would love to give as a gift, because it's important. It's important to be realistic with where you are. Because if I just showed up to the Rio every day and played like every big PLO event and played every 25-50 game that runs at the Ari every day over the summer, like I did last summer, which I was stoked doing it last summer. Like I wasn't burned out. I was like, you remembering me last summer, I was on the fattest upswing of my life, like walking around slapping people in the face about just like being stoked on poker, not physically, like just being happy.
I don't know.
Like
maybe you
energetically. Were. Only if people consent for the slapping. Okay. But this summer, if I did that again, that's how consent works, Joey. But if I
listen, buddy, I actually had a couple months ago, I actually had a woman who's, shout out to my girlfriend, not my girlfriend, but I was at a gathering, and as a woman who's known in poker, she said that she thinks I need some good slaps from her.
I mean, I respect it.
And the idea of consent came. I was like, not the time of my life for me to be letting another girl slap me around. But it's another story. It's another story, not for the podcast.
Maybe second half of the podcast, we'll see where we are in like
that might be like a post-pod discussion we have about that. Yeah, but people know who this person is too. So
got it. Okay, respect. We don't have to have that conversation.
Oh yeah.
But back to what I'm saying. If I did that this summer, I'd burn out and it'd be really unhealthy for me. And so what's been really important as I as I walk the tightrope of staying inside of the poker world and playing poker, is being honest with myself about how much I'm playing and how to build a system where I feel healthy, where I'm able to show up to play poker, feel good about playing, and then have other shit to do. Why are you laughing?
Great, Dylan. So Dylan, you're making some really good points here, right? So Dylan, but I mean, it's a long point, right? But it's a great point. Okay.
Okay.
So what you're saying, Dylan, okay? Let me bring it around. Let me break it down in the short way, because I got what you're saying. I just want to explain to me what you're saying. Okay?
You got it.
So what you're saying, Dylan, is that you put in so much effort and so much work over the past 6 months studying the great game, the great game of Parliament Omaha. You've been working hard at putting this together and articulating your thoughts and studying with the solver and talking with Chris and trying to become a better businessman and trying to become a more healthier person and becoming more self-aware of what exactly makes you happy, what allows you to perform at your best, what allows you to be the man that you envision yourself to be. And that person has led you to feel like maybe you need to bring the most dedicated, hardcore work ethic to the World Series of Poker because of all that work you put in. But because in the past you've done that and you've dealt with the emotional feeling of unhappiness and unhealthiness, you took this amazing analogy. Is that what it's called? An analogy your therapist gave you in terms of correlations between you being an Olympic sprinter, and if you sprint hard every day, you're going to burn out and hurt yourself. Therefore, you need to pace yourself more and have more balance in your life. So therefore, even though you know that you would probably have a successful summer at the World Series of Poker due to all the work that you put in on the mind game and the theory, you know that you still need to pace yourself and you can't go as hard because then you'll be unhealthy and you won't be able to make it to the long run, thereby ensuring that you get to go farther, you get to go longer, you get to perform at your best for a prolonged period of time, and now you're trying to make that a full-blown part of your mindset and of your habits in your life. And you articulating this to me and other people out there is a way for you to be able to do something like that.
A+, not A+.
I'm telling you, man, I'm just on the fucking ball, man.
it.
I love it. Was that a summary? I don't know. I felt like it was a summary. It wasn't a summary. Mitch, sorry, Magic the Gathering, Mitch. My bad. Mitch didn't think it was a summary. My bad.
I think it was perfect. You did great.
Okay. I'm breaking it out. I'm not summarizing. I'm just trying to see if I understand it right. That's not kind of what you're saying.
Doing good. Yeah, you're doing good. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's like you can't, especially if you've been doing something for a long period of time, you build up gunk, and you have to just be honest with where you are. Right.
So hold on. Let's wait, does Mitch have a podcast? We're going to check it. Maybe Mitch is summarizing this on his own stream. Mitch, you got a stream go? No? Okay. No, Mitch. Just gathering Mitch. I love Mitch, man. Okay. So, State of Parliament Omaha. We got a little off track there, right? And then we sort of got into transitioning outside of poker, which is the top we're going to talk about more. So State of Parliament Omaha live. We already mentioned that with the live games, with the live setting. What about the online setting in terms of what you're seeing in the online world?
So I can only speak to the ecosystems that I play in, which are WSOP, and then sometimes I also play Ignition when I'm outside of the state of Nevada. So, but I'm in tune with the Ignition games because like Chris plays on Ignition, we talk about the games a lot. So I'm in tune with both. But I'm not as in tune with the international player pool, so I don't want to speak to them because I'm not inside of them. Mm-hmm. In terms of the US market, I still think there's tons of value to be had. On stream, I'm playing 1-2, 2-4, 3-6. These games are very beatable. The regulars are nice humans. I'm meeting a lot of them, but they still just have lots of leaks in their games. The ecosystem itself. I'm just being honest. I have leaks in my game too.
I'm not saying you're not being. Just the way you put it was quite nice. You know, I'm thinking about Jason Moha. He might put something like that, and I feel like it would come out a little different.
Yeah, because me and JMO are literally like Mike Brady said that me and JMO are the exact opposite humans. Like we're about as different as you can get from their souls, and we can still hang out, which is pretty cool. Like JMO's a nice dude, just invited me to his home, so there's still tons of value to be had, especially if you start approaching the game from a more game theory oriented perspective. Like that doesn't mean you need to throw away everything you've ever known about how to play the game of poker. It just means you have to adapt to the new ecosystem, which is a solver based meta. And so if you are putting in the work, if you're building consistency and you're learning these new tools, there's still plenty of value to be had in these online ecosystems. I truly believe that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I think there's a lot of value out there to be had. There's a lot of different options or different sites. Once again, the game evolves. So as the game evolves, right, you have more app sites, you got home game sites, you got other sites that are kind of popping up in these little parts of the world. And it becomes, right, it's not as easy as maybe you can load up one site, play on one site. You still can if you're outside the United States, but even then you could debate if that's the best strategy. So right now there are a number of different places that you can play online poker, some out of line, some shady, some not shady. But either way, if you understand how to navigate the world and build a winning strategy and understand how to watch out for things and get paid, and there's a lot of things to worry about. So I can understand how it's a daunting task for many people out there. But if you're able to do that, there are still plenty of people that are making pretty good money. Now, the question I might have is, how sustainable is that going to be for the future? And that's a good question. And it's really hard to know, especially as the content gets better out there. And now every, the Nolan Hold'em, they've got these apps that are training you on the fly and all this kind of stuff like that. And the spokesmen for these training sites, they're very rah-rah, and they sound like they know what you're talking about. They get you to buy their shit pretty well. So I don't know how sustainable a lot of this is. But what I see happening with the current strategy in poker is that the baseline regular, it's going to keep getting driven up and driven up. The top guys are still going to have to put in a ton of different work, and they're still going to have a huge edge over the middle class and, of course, the fun players. But the fun player overall level is going to keep raising up slowly as well, too, as a lot more of these very defined strategies that have been shown to be the optimal way to play certain spots, as those become more common amongst all players, then the fun players are going to start learning them, just like they started learning what ranges to shove with at 8 big blinds and that type of thing. So we're just going to see the strategy continue to evolve, but the top players out there are still going to have a massive edge, and it's never been easier to become a top player in the game of poker at any format with the tools available right now. That's exactly true. And you actually, I really like the way that you articulated that, because it's very similar to what's happening in the live world. And I hadn't really put this together yet, but in the old days of the live world, you show up to your casino, whatever, you start crushing if you're the best player in the game. Same thing. I used to sign onto my Full Tilt account, sit in the lobbies, people would sit me and I'd beat them up, and then I wouldn't have to think about anything else. And nowadays, I've kind of taken the same approach to live as online. I play primarily on WSOP because I don't want to deal with the apps. I don't want to have to deal with with navigating the getting paid, not getting paid, the variance of that. It takes a lot of mental and emotional bandwidth in order to navigate that. And so I would much rather get really, really good at poker, beat the regulated sites, and then also have things outside of poker that creates balance for me. That's my personal approach. But what you're saying is super valid, because I'm not squeezing the poker lemon as hard as I possibly can in terms of getting on all the apps, in terms of finding as much action as possible. Because I don't want to have to deal with that. I don't want to have to deal with affiliates. I don't want to have to deal with having the connection at the site, worrying about getting paid out, worrying about the integrity of the sites when they're not regulated. It's things I don't care to think of, therefore I don't. Right. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be. It's your choice which path you want to take. You can take my path, which is just like trying to become the best in the pools that you're playing in and have them be regulated. Or to like maybe put in a lot of work, but maybe a little less work so that you have the bandwidth to navigate these other spaces. It just depends on what is optimal for you. Right. And that's a person to person balancing act. But what's most important is just that, like, as you said, to be aware of what the ecosystem is. It's to know what all the variables are, both in terms of regulated, non-regulated, and then to have enough self-awareness and be honest with yourself to say, okay, what's the best way I can navigate this for me? Mm-hmm. It's a good point, Dylan. Very good point. What else we got, Jose? We're dropping some knowledge on them today. I'm liking this a lot, man. You're right. I think that's just what it is the ecosystem evolves, and it's just not how it used to be, right? It's not going to be a rake-back driven world. It's not going to be play a lot of hands world. It's now you have to get better at your game and better at understanding what you're doing if you'd like to be successful. But there's a lot of people out there that just play to have a good time and play to have fun. And I think it's never been a better time to be one of those players in terms of wanting to get better at the game. Or even if you want to go play and you don't want to win, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's a bad thing either. It's not very exciting to go to the fucking casino and play for 4 hours and have to fold every hand because you don't get any good hands pre-flop, right? So I understand if you want to go there and all the conversation is like, you got to get better. If you don't want to get better, you don't have to get better, man. Right? If you don't give a fuck, then who cares? Go to your work, go to work your job, work hard, you make money, right? You want to go enjoy yourself. Your way of balancing is you want to go play poker and you don't want to give a fuck about playing well. And that's perfectly fine. And I encourage everybody out there to do that if that's what makes them happy. Because you don't need to go there and play 14% of your hands or 16% of your hands at a full ring hold'em game and be miserable with the experience. So if you want to go there and you want to play a lot of hands, you want to have a good time, just understand that you're probably not going to win money. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be all about winning or losing the money. So I 100% agree with that. And that actually extends the point that I made in terms of like, just know what the ecosystem is and then figure out the best way to interact with it for you. Maybe if you know, like a lot of the recreational players at high stakes are incredibly successful, very intelligent. I've learned a lot from being able to sit in these really big games, especially when I was like kind of 21, 22, and talking with people who are very successful outside of poker. They're good humans generally, not all the time, obviously.
and they just are there for the mental game, for the stimulus. And so they're aware of the ecosystem. They're aware that they're recreational players. They're aware that just by sitting at the table, I'll make more money than them over time, and they don't care. But what's, I think, not healthy is if you aren't aware of the ecosystem and you're showing up playing like an 80% VPIP and then getting mad at yourself when you lose because you're not consenting. Like you don't have enough information to be informed about what's actually happening. And so that's, I think, everyone's responsibility, is to just learn about the ecosystem. Like that's what you're responsible for. And then as long as you consent to it, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Like you can, if you are an adult and you make money, you can spend that in whatever you want to. If you're an adult and you want to work your face off and get really good at poker, yeah, exactly. You do whatever you want, as long as you're informed, and as long as you put in the time to do that.
I just feel like everyone out there, their message is so like, you got to get better if you play poker. The only way to play poker is you got to just aspire to be the sharpest mental game and all this kind of stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I'm just, I'm kind of, it doesn't need to be that way, right? You go to play in Hollywood, you want to go play someone 1-3, or you go to Sahara, play 1-3 to win, you 2-5, right? You go there, have a good time, man. Just because you see this guy on their phone all the time looking fucking miserable because that's all they do and that's the way they live their life. And, it doesn't necessarily mean that has to be your experience that you have as well too. And you don't need to feel that same way because you're not winning at poker when these guys aren't winning at poker and they want to kill themselves because they're not winning at poker.
It's really challenging being that grinder as well, where you've maybe, for lack of a better term, pigeonholed yourself into that existence because you built this skill set, and now the only way to navigate it for you, because maybe you haven't put enough work into your game where you can kind of escape the 2-5 or 5-10 trap. And so you're kind of stuck in these games where that's your existence. And that's also really challenging. And so I have empathy for those players. I have friends who are those players, and it's not easy to have that be your existence, but that also doesn't mean that you don't have the tools to get out of it, right? Like in the same way that the recreationals who sit at the table have the tools to just like have a lot of fun, the regulars who are maybe stuck in these games, or they feel stuck. It's like a feeling of being in a hole.
Right.
They have the tools to
feel that way. They put themselves in that mindset, which is understandable with the environment around them and the people holding them accountable and their mindsets in terms of where they'd like to go with their own career, because a lot of people get stuck in that they don't set any more goals for themselves to continue to grow in their own career. So they're stuck at the same place for a prolonged period of time. If you're a poker player or if you're whatever your job is, you're going to be unhappy with that if you just keep doing the same exact thing and not trying to get better at it for a prolonged period of time.
That's exactly correct.
Yeah, and that's where you see a lot of these poker players now. Like I put it the other day about, would you recommend someone play professional poker? And the people that responded so we're unhappy are people who have been playing a very long time, and they don't really, maybe they don't have an opportunity for growth in their career anymore. So it makes sense why they feel that way. But I think a lot of people out there who might be starting off or might be trying to establish themselves or become winning players have a ton of opportunity to grow and also to learn a lot about life. Because as you mentioned earlier, through the game of poker, you can get better at it teaches you how to get better at anything.
Yeah,
because you can apply the same exact approach that you apply to poker to whatever it is.
I think that's something that's really challenging. The biggest trap, I think, for the players that are maybe stuck in a rut is that they stop working on their game, and because they don't have any passion for it anymore. And that's why, like, for example, if
passion, that's true. It's a good point, Dylan. Continue on. Sorry, passion. It's a good word for me right now. Shout out to Fedor.
I didn't know. Is that a meme that I missed?
It's true. It's true. We got passion around here. You got passion too.
Definitely. No, I definitely have passion. I try really hard to cultivate. Like, passion is something you cultivate. It's not something that shows up magically. Like you have to be the one to build it for yourself. And I think that if you don't have or the word that be in Yiddish is like the chutzpah, like the energy, like the vigor. Like if you don't feel that inside of yourself anymore, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that you're unhappy, because in order to continue to grow your career, you have to put in work at poker. Like right now, for someone I would probably rather take, if I was going to look at where they'd be in terms of their poker career a year from now, someone who's been playing for 6 years and is maybe stuck grinding like the 2-5 games versus someone who's been playing 6 months, putting in a bunch of work every day. If you're going to give me one of those two people to teach, give me the person who's been playing for 6 months who has a lot of energy, because I'm going to drill them with all of the proper fundamentals, the way to approach the game effectively, and they're going to suck it all up because they're so stoked. And so they're going to have a much sharper earnings and career trajectory than the person who's been playing for longer and has more experience, because they still have more chutzpah. They still have more ability to learn. They want to learn. Mm-hmm. They aren't jaded yet. They haven't gone on the 2-year downswing or whatever, like the X amount downswing that saps all of saps everything out of your being. And it happens to all of us, kind of a thing.
Just like it happened with you. Just like it happened with you in the business world.
It happened and in the poker world. Last year, I went on both the biggest upswing and downswing of my life financially. Back to
poker.
Back. And poker, yeah. And that was incredibly challenging. And it forced me to take a step back and be like, okay, I got a little too hot. I thought I was better than I was. Let's get back in the lab. Let's focus on our fundamentals. Let's focus on our process, and let's get back after it. And if you don't have that bounce back ability, you have to learn how to cultivate it. And it's much easier to cultivate that if that's where you started your programming. Like, I'm fortunate that from the time I was very young, that's always been my programming. And so I've had it my entire life. And it's easy. It's not easy to train, but you can train it in someone who's a little younger versus someone who's maybe been playing for a longer period of time. That's not to say that someone who hasn't been doing poker for a long period of time can't train this. They just got to work hard. It's like learning a language when you're like, if you want to learn a language, it's easier to learn it when you're 1 versus when you're 9.
It's true.
Yeah.
Peddling says, well, why do I have a feeling this guy gets extremely out of line? Nice read. maybe not out of line in the. I don't think they. I mean, listen. I don't know if they know, right? Who might be more out of line, me or Dylan? I think at a time it was me, all right. But now I think it's Dylan. Okay. I mean, really, it is Dylan. So no doubt about it. Now when people say, like, I say Dylan's the guy. When I talk to Dylan, I get fired about whatever I'm doing, right? Whether it's poker, whether it's life, whether it's business, that's when I get excited. Dylan's the guy I go to get excited. People think I'm excited all the time. Like, I got a guy I go to that excites me. So it's like, imagine what that guy's like. Well, now you get to see what the guy's like. Now you're meeting him right here. I mean, this is the Dr. GTO in the house, man, coming in with the tools ready to do an operation. We got the Surgeon Chris waiting in the background as well too. Surgeon Chris. I've been watching his videos. In the Upswing stuff, yeah, you guys got different styles. You know, you sort of went with like a more trying to be like a normal speaking style, though. I think in some of the stuff, you didn't bring the same. What was the word we used? Chutzpah.
Chutzpah. You
didn't bring that chutzpah to the table like I might have thought you'd bring to it.
I bring it to my stream, but for YouTube, I have to get better at making YouTube videos. I haven't quite ironed down that. Like when you make, you know how to make, you've made so many YouTube videos that for you, it's intuitive which emotional level to bring for that specific content space. And for Twitch, that was incredibly natural for me. I was able to just show up, be myself, have lots of energy, talk to people, and it worked. Like, and so I didn't have to have the learning curve. But for YouTube, I don't have that same amount of intuition into that space. It's a different format type.
Right.
So
it's really easy. I could talk like anyone. I could talk like Doug. I could talk like Berkey. I could talk like, Berkey, right? You just got to get the fucking dictionary out a little bit and start using some different words, right? Let me get my thesaurus out, right? Hold on. I love Berkey. Shout out to Berkey, man. Berkey's doing God's fucking work over there, man.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so when I try to ameliorate, AMELIORATE. How do you say that word? Ameliorate. When I ameliorate at poker, that would be something Berkey would say. He would phrase it differently, right? So I would just have to study that for about a couple days, and then I could come out and I'd be sounding like Berkey as well too, man.
So to be honest, it's just like a time thing, because for Twitch, as I said, I just showed up and was myself. I didn't have to put any work to it. YouTube, I'd have to learn the craft of how to create content with a specific space, like with a specific cadence. And like, you're saying you could do that with anyone because you're a fucking professional at it, Joey. You've been doing this shit for years. I've been doing this shit for weeks.
I get it. So, is that how it works?
That's how it works.
So wait a sec. So what you're telling me is that if you have more experience doing something and you practiced and studied more of it and thought more about it, you're probably going to have an advantage over someone who hasn't done that type of work in the lab yet.
That's probably true. I'd feel comfortable saying that generally. Yes. There's maybe some fringe exceptions.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But what actually, just speaking to Chris a little bit,
Surgeon Chris.
The Surgeon Chris. Yeah.
The surgeon of the Upswing Pilot Omaha Mastery Course.
AKA Big Daddy, AKA Surgeon Chris.
Wait, what? Big Daddy?
Big Daddy Chris. Oh yeah.
Why do we call him Big Daddy Chris?
Because it's funny.
Is it?
Because he's big.
Okay.
He's tall.
I don't know where you're going with this one. Okay.
No, he's tall. He's a tall.
Man, wherever you're going, you're fine. I'll go down the road. I just want to know which road we're going down. That's all it is.
So
Big Chris, Big Daddy.
I just do it because it's so like, it's just to meme him because it's fun for me. This is purely for me, not for anybody else. But like in working with someone like Chris, it's both really I hear Emily laughing. It's really mindful because I have to have my ears open when he's talking about poker every time we chat, because I'm always learning something. His approach to the game is like a surgeon. It's very scientific. It's very precise. And that comes from just like being in the lab for years, like making piles of sims. And that's what allows him to beat 2550 on WSOP. He sits everybody, he sits every game, and he feels comfortable playing in all those games. He beats 1020 on Ignition. Those are really tough pools also. And it's
could he beat Vinny Vidi though? I mean, come on, let's ask the question we all want to know.
Could he beat Vinny Vidi? I think Vinny Vidi is probably better than Chris heads up, because Vinny Vidi is a heads up specialist and Chris specializes in six max. I don't know who would have a higher six max win rate though, because Chris is very, very dialed in to six max, and he's not as dialed into heads up. So I don't want to speak to like who is the absolute better poker player. I think they've focused on different things. I don't know enough about Vinny Vidi and about his six max game. I just know Chris is very good at six max pot limit Omaha. But Chris has told me himself that he thinks Vinny Vidi is better than he is at heads up, and so I feel comfortable saying that on camera. And that and Vinny Vidi is a monster. He's really, 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 really good. Like and when I was watching the Galfond challenge, every hand they played, I wasn't able to find a single sizing mistake. I wasn't able to find I don't think I found any side card mistakes in things that he used in different combinations. And I'm not like the best in the world at this, but I'm pretty good at it. And I just didn't see anything that was egregious. You can just tell that the man has been in the lab and puts in a tremendous amount of work, which is why he holds down the party in the stars lobbies. I'm pretty sure he does, right? And so in order to do that, it just takes a phenomenal amount of effort. That's the way that the poker world works right now.
That makes sense. Yeah. I'd like to see him play still though.
To see Chris play?
And Vinny, yeah.
It would be fun for me. I'd love to watch that too. Just make content out of it.
What about you two play, you and Chris?
We should make some content about Chris and I playing heads up, because I might
work both you guys. But listen, man, you guys fire me up. I might take y'all both on.
Ooh.
I'm taking everybody on. Fuck it, man. Listen, Dylan, I've been watching these other sports and other things, and like the players play against each other. Whereas in poker, everyone's so fucking scared to play anybody, to put their self on the line, except my man Phil Galfond. Shout out to Phil Galfond with the Galfond Challenge. Everyone's so scared and so shook to play anybody else. And in the name of content, I'm going to play everybody this year. I'm playing them all.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I don't know. I'm not sure what we're playing for, right? Are we playing for maybe one of us got you about the airplane or something like that? I don't really know exactly what we're going to be playing for, but I'd like to see the people in the community play a little bit more.
Joey, we can get a show match going anytime.
I'm gonna take you down, man. I'm telling you right now. Listen,
in.
Man,
that sounds super fun for me. I'm stoked. I would love that would just be fun for me. I would enjoy that. Not for anything other. I would just I would love to do that. That sounds super.
I want to play the market. I want to do a marketing challenge against somebody though. That's what I haven't been studying poker. I've studied everything else way more than poker. But I've been loving poker, and I think I've been studying a lot of Texas Hold'em actually. Okay. But with aka 2-card pot limit Omaha, but with 4-card pot limit Omaha with the new course, I think it's going to be pretty cool for me to kind of get into and study.
Yeah, I think that specifically with the course that we made, it's built in such a way where you can definitely start from zero, but it's not going to be easy to start from zero, just because to get good at PLO takes a lot of time and effort. I'm not going to lie to you and say that if you buy this course, it's going to magically turn you into the best poker player in the world. But if you buy this course and then use it effectively as a study tool over time, it will 100% give you the tools to become better. And that's just the way that it is.
So I don't want to. I mean, obviously, it's like that with anything, any training thing out there, right? Any book you read. I mean, any book you read, anything you study, right?
I disagree with that.
It's going to be the same. Whatever you put into that, no matter what it is, you're going to be able to get something out of it. And I think there's a lot of really great content out there overall that's free, that you could pay for. It all depends on what you can afford and where you find the value and how you find value from it. So
I hear that partially, but I disagree with it partially as well. The reason that I disagree with it is because let's say that you study a textbook that has the wrong formulas in it over a long period of time, and you're just literally studying you're studying tools or content that is the wrong answers. And that's heavily prevalent in the poker world. Heavily prevalent.
Oh, who's giving out the wrong answers, Dylan?
I'm not going to, we're only going to talk about people who are doing things well. We're not going to call out people who are doing things poorly.
My man Fireman said, let them know the GOAT is on the West Coast. He ain't afraid to play anybody. So Fireman Scott is calling you guys out. He's going to be playing on Live at the Bike. He's a Omaha vlogger from Houston, my guy Fireman.
Tell Fireman Scott that he was supposed to get in contact with me. He might not have a spot in the game unless he texts me.
No, you got to let my man Fireman play in the fucking game. He's awesome.
I will if he can. We'll try to get him in.
Fireman, send me a message on Instagram so I can get you in touch with Dylan so we can get you in the game, okay?
Yeah. So back to what I was saying though. The reason why this course is different as a study tool than other study tools that are available is because it's built correctly. It's built in such a way where we went and we solved like all the pre-flop ranges are coming from Bunker directly. Everything is like, this isn't a thing where, I think this is correct. It's like objectively from a game theory perspective, the information that we've built in the fundamental theory section, which is pre-flop, flop, turn, and river, it is correct. And it's presented to you in such a way where it builds upon itself. And so as a learning tool, if you're putting out, so I agree with you in that if you put in work to something, you're going to get stuff out of it. But if you put in work to the correct thing, you will get more out of it. And so if the tool that you're training with is designed in a way that is conducive to learning and the information is factually correct, you're going to get more out of putting hours into that training material than other training material. And that's what differentiates this course from anything else on the market. It's that it's built in such a way where we made sure that the information is correct and we presented it with learning management resources, right? Like with quizzes as you go, with videos that will maybe make some of the more difficult concepts easier to understand, right? It's so that it's not only correct, but that you can learn it effectively. Like we give you study tools, and the way that the content's presented is in such a way where if you watch it start to finish, it builds an intuition and it builds a new way to approach the game of poker. And so you're going to get more out of this course than you would from other things.
What are you paying me to let you have you on with this sales pitch?
Maybe I am.
I'm already predicting the comments right now.
The shills, dude. I don't even care. It's real. Like if this course wasn't as good, I probably wouldn't be as stoked on marketing it. But I legitimately think that it's fire. Like I'm one of the main use cases for the course, because as I was making it, I was watching all of Chris's videos and getting better at poker as I was going. I was literally using this material as we were making it to get better.
Have you beat the Bankroll Challenge yet?
What? I have not.
Oh. So the course can't help you beat the Bankroll Challenge then.
I'm gonna keep trying though.
I want to see it, man. I want to see the hands. I want to see you dominate on Live at the Bike.
I'm ready for it.
I want to see you dominate on Live at the Bike. I want to see you putting this work into play. Right? Let's see what you got, Big D.
I show up.
Let's see what you got, kid. I'm ready.
I show up 4 days a week on stream. You can show up and watch.
Exactly, man. I like it.
I will continue to be there, and you can be there too. One of my favorite things is when people are like, "Dude, do you even play?" Or like, "Do you even play poker?" I'm like, "Yo, I'm literally sitting here on Twitch describing all of my thought processes." And so not only am I saying when I'm also saying when I'm wrong. That's the thing. It's like if someone comes into the chat and says, "Hey, that was a mistake," I will look it up and be like, "Oh, you were correct. I'm not perfect. I'm pretty good at the game of poker. I'd say I'm like definitely getting there, but it's not as if I'm going to get everything correct, and so I'm okay with being wrong in a public forum. But for all the people that are just like talking shit, like literally show up to my Twitch stream and and come after me, like come sit in my games. Like it's a thing that
they want to play. They show up, huh? Stop talking that bullshit. And why don't you show up to the plate, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And I'm showing up 4 days a week right now. And I've literally in my bankroll challenge gone from 5K down to 2K up to 13.5K. And last 2 sessions I lost like 7K. And I'm back down to 5.5. And you know what? PLO has variance. Mm-hmm. I've made some mistakes, but I've also been playing well. I'm gonna keep showing up to Twitch and keep battling because that's all that you can do. Like no matter if you're going through a downswing, like maybe I take a couple of days off because I'm not feeling that great, but I'm going to learn. I'm going to do study reviews. I'm going to continue to get better.
You're working at your game hard.
Yeah, definitely.
You walking the walk and you talking the talk.
That's like, if you're going to put out a course and then charge $999 for it, I don't want to just be a person that's shilling. I want to be someone who actually does what I say I do.
Right.
Like that's the only way, that's the only way for me that I'd be comfortable in myself and comfortable in selling something for a significant amount of money to some people.
Mm-hmm. Amen. I like that a lot.
Appreciate that.
I'm liking it a lot. Your Twitch for the people out there, it's what? It's a heart Cookies 1, right?
Cookies 1. COZKIES 1. Cookies 1. I play most Sunday, Mondays, starting around 5 p.m. PST, and then around 5 p.m. PST if I'm showing up. The Tuesday through Saturday is sporadic, given my other stuff.
Okay.
But Sunday, Monday, almost every week.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm in the streets. If you're in the state of Nevada or the state of New Jersey, you want to talk some shit and come sit in my games, I'm more than happy for you to.
Don't load that VPN up though. Don't VPN just to play Dylan. Okay, we don't advocate for that around here, please.
We don't.
Moonlight Master, you can post a Twitch link, man. Let's talk about Galfond Challenge. Galfond Challenge going to resume tomorrow. Everyone's really excited about that. Okay. He's currently down about $900,000 against Vinny Vidi. It's a lot of buy-ins. I think it's over 100, 200, over 40 buy-ins right now. He's down, and he's going to continue on with that challenge against Vinny Vidi. What are your thoughts on what you expect to happen with the Galfond Challenge? And do you think that potentially Phil, in this time off, could have got his mindset back on track to a point where he'll be able to possibly have some more success? Or do you think that the couple weeks off is not going to be enough time for Phil to come around the corner?
That's a really good question. I think that Phil is a very good poker player, and that taking a mental reset is the correct thing to do when you've faced some negative variance, you've gone on a big downswing. I don't think that that's going to be enough to overcome just how much of a monster Benny Beatty is. And that's not me talking shit about Phil Galfond. I think that he's a talented PLO player. He's been in the game forever. Mad respect to him for offering this challenge. It's just like, you can't maneuver your way out of the Sims. You cannot finagle your poker game and like try to exploit somebody who is just like playing closer to equilibrium than you, who just understands all the spots and understands them in such a deep and intimate way where they have fluidity in it. Like when you watch Venny play, you can just tell that the homies put in the work. And Phil took time off to enter the business world, to become an entrepreneur. And at one point was at the top of the PLO game, but he's working with solvers now, but you can't just like study with solvers for 3 months and expect to beat someone who's been using them for 3 years. Right. It's just not the way that the game of it'd be like a professional, it'd be like the best Go player in the world getting beaten up by Alpha Go, and it's like, oh, I need a couple week break, and then if they come back, Alpha Go is going to still be better than them, no matter how good their mental game is. And that's not to say that Phil can't go on an upswing. It's not to say that Phil isn't at a better place now than he was before he took the break, because that's probably almost entirely true. He probably took time off, studied, like let himself decompress from the downswing. That was a good choice by him, definitely. But that's not going to make up the delta, or what I perceived, and I could be wrong, obviously, this is just my personal opinion, the perceived delta between Venny Vidi and Phil's game.
I'm going the other way, Dylan. I think that Phil Galfond, a legend of the great game, a pot limit Omaha, I think he's going to go the other way, Dylan. I think in these 2 weeks off, he's put in that effort. He's talked with the people. He's worked hard, but, it's going to be tough, right? I mean, maybe because Venny Vidi tilt, does the guy tilt? I don't understand, right?
I haven't seen him tilt, dog. I've seen him just play really well every time I've checked in with him the entire time. Like homie just is repeating the Sims in his brain and then just like showing up with a very well-structured heuristic and surgical approach to the game of PLO. And it's going to be very, very challenging to beat that. That's my opinion.
So Dylan, you've been doing a lot of work. By the way, Galfond Challenge resumes tomorrow. I'll be doing my recap videos as well throughout the challenge. You can find those on Join Your One YouTube channel, and subscribe to the channel, like the videos if you enjoy them, subscribe to the channel. You can find all that content. So in your work and in your studies, what are some of the most important pieces of information you've been able to gather that you might be able to share with the people out there?
Poker
wise, yeah.
Poker-wise, I'd say the biggest aha moment for me in the past year has been understanding building a greater understanding of what everyone built ranges. Like there's 270,000 combinations in PLO. And so being able to effectively put people on ranges in different spots, given pre-flop to the flop to the turn to the river, and build a consistent story with all those combinations, that's been the first aha moment for me, because it gives you the whole picture. And then the second aha moment for me is when you have that information, when you have everyone's ranges constructed in a somewhat reasonable way, what are you supposed to do given that knowledge? And so there are these things in Mucker Solver called they're the equity graphs for both players' ranges, where it shows who's winning at the top of range, who's winning at the middle of range, and who's winning at the bottom of range. And it shows them against each other. And when you look at these graphs and you have this visual representation, it actually dictates how you're supposed to place different spots. I'll give you one example. let's say that I'm on the button. We're playing 100 big blinds deep, 6 max. I raise, and the big blind calls. The flop comes king, 5, deuce with 2 diamonds. Big blind checks. I bet, they call. And the turn comes the 10 of diamonds bringing the flush. They check. For me, I'm the person in position. I have what you call a nut or a polarity advantage, which means I'm going to have the nut flush way more than the other player is, because they didn't 3-bet pre, they didn't check raise me on the flop. They're heavily discounted in having ace-ace combinations and ace-x combinations with diamonds. And so I have the polarity advantage. Or the nut advantage.
This is a lot of strat here. Fuck. Okay, go ahead.
You asked the question.
I understand, but then I forgot what I was getting myself. Oh my god! This is
literally
the solve for this spot, though. It's not good. Okay, keep going.
I'll
No. Just fine. Tell him. My god.
Okay, whatever.
I can't believe the strategy's so good these days. It's actually sick how good the fucking strategy is these days. If you like it to be.
Yeah, I mean that's what we're charging lots of money, is because we're giving you the
on
answers.
With the game plan here. Continue on, right? Most people aren't protecting their ranges enough flush combos. Okay, go ahead.
So in this spot, when you have a nut advantage, the 2 equity graphs would show that the person who's in the big blind has more middling flushes than you do, right? So they're gonna have like the flushes in the middle of range, and so they're beating you from like 70% downwards, but you're winning 30% up. And in those spots, you play a big bet sizing. You bet full pot. And then you check and you bet that full pot with your nut flushes and then your nut flush blockers, and you check everything else. And and there's that situation that I just described. That's one sim. Think about how many different spots there are where you can run the information and then use the range interactions to define your betting strategies. And that's the way that the most successful players approach the game of Pot Limit Omaha right now, is by heavily drilling themselves in what each player is supposed to have in different situations, and then using that information to build strategies that are protected by those ranges. That like the story always checks out when you're playing from a game theory perspective. Like Johnny Chan's, like I forget who used to say, like, you have to tell a good story when saying a bluff or whatever. That is more true now than it's ever been, because your stories can directly correlate to what the ranges are. And given the fact that there are so many different combinations in the game of Pot Limit Omaha, you can get heavily surgical. It's like not just about your top card, but like when you're like learning it, maybe you use 2 cards from your hand. Me and Pav were talking about this last night. When you get really good, you're looking at 3 cards in your hand. And when you're really good, all 4 cards in your hand matter. You're using your side cards to dictate your betting frequencies. Like, you don't need a randomizer because you have 4 cards in your hand. And that's how the best players approach the game right now.
Lovely.
You asked me a question about poker strategy, Joey.
The great game of Pot Limit Omaha.
Dude, it is a great, dude. It's so fun. I fucking love this game.
Days,
it's so good. Like, the better you get at it, the more like nuanced it becomes, the more intricate it becomes. It is gorgeous. Like, it's so fun for me to play, especially to get good at. Like, I love it.
I'm ready.
Hell yeah.
I'm ready, Dylan. I'm ready to take the course. I might just start fucking streaming the course. What are they gonna do? What's Upswing gonna do? Huh?
Please,
what are you gonna do, dog? Huh? You gonna lock my Twitch, lock my YouTube channel? I'm streaming the whole course for free. Fuck it, man. I'm putting it all out there for everybody to see, Dylan.
Joey, don't do that. I worked so hard. I want to.
Oh yeah, paid. I forgot. We're operating a business around here.
I'm trying to get paid, man. Please don't stream it for free.
We operate in a business around here. But yeah, I mean, obviously this is the kind of content that's involved in the course, right? Kind of understanding these spots, understanding these type of situations. And a lot of the sidecar discussion wasn't publicly going on for many, many years in Pot Limit Omaha, but as the information changed and tools changed, now people are starting to understand how valuable and how important the sidecards are for determining what you decide to do in these different situations. So
yep, exactly correct.
Yeah. Amen.
Give
me some questions from the chat, guys out there. I mean, I'm scared to ask another question. I'm scared for the answer that's going to come out here.
We can go back to the machine learning taking over our lives conversation.
Okay, if you want.
It's the second half of the podcast.
You're right. It's the second half of the podcast. We actually have a couple other things out here too. So I want to go back to the people transitioning out of poker.
Okay.
So for people transitioning out of poker, right? You mentioned earlier about using poker and for people that start learning poker, they should build up good systems versus trying to build up a winning strategy, but try to learn the game how it's supposed to be learned and take those idea of building a system, and then you can apply it to other things. Now, if you're a poker player who never had a system in place in terms of how you got better, how you played, and you just sort of went here, went there, and you weren't very organized or weren't very planned out, what kind of advice would you give for that person to discover a way to transition out of poker when they're not very organized and they've sort of just gone by the seat of their pants for the most of their career?
That's a really, really good question. The first thing that comes to my mind is that you have, if you've been in poker for that long and you've been able to be successful in poker for that long, you're going to have I think I got it. So I was about to say that you should use poker because you already know it really well to start building the systems. But what's not correct about that is that there's too much familiarity. You already have these built-in pathways, like these neural pathways for how you interact with the game of poker, like the emotional responses you have, the physical responses you have. And so it's going to be really hard to build, if you've never had a system in poker ever, to build a system in poker from scratch is going to be challenging because you have so much gunk in that interaction with poker. And so what I'd recommend doing is continuing to play poker, finding a hobby outside of poker that you could build a system within. So something like a pet game. Find something that, like, literally it could be gardening. It can be it can be learning how to fly drones or whatever. Something that requires a small amount of skill, that's going to require you to build a process on that small thing. And so you can start to build the muscles that you'd need. And then once you've started to learn how to build a process, start applying it to poker again. So don't start in poker and building your process. Keep playing poker, maybe back off from it a little bit, do some time, like take space, try to like do things to make yourself feel healthy, get your shit together in terms of your physical health, get your shit together in terms of your mental and emotional health. Like those things are all square one for anybody trying to be successful. Like if you don't have your body, you don't have your mind, and you don't have your soul in check, you're not going to be able to be successful because it's just going to hurt to exist. And it's going to take too much. You're spending too much of your internal resources on sustaining because you haven't built, because you're just not healthy. And so that's step one is getting healthy, and then using that getting healthy as well as this secondary habit that you're going to build processes within. Then you take that back to poker, because that's like your big test to see if you've truly learned. Once you can bring that back to poker, then from there, you can transition out. That'd be like the GTO way to do it, but that's going to be really hard for a lot of people. And so I don't want to stand on like a pedestal and say, oh, just do this thing. Maybe it's just that you keep playing poker and then you do the other two things. You get your body in check, you find your habit. And then from there, you just search for something else. That's another viable strategy to get out. It's to build yourself, like continue using poker as your source of income. Probably scaling your hours back, because if you're burnt out, it's going to take so much mental and emotional energy to keep playing. So scale back. You have to take a hit in terms of your network, in terms of your lifestyle, to invest into yourself, to invest into building these better habits that you can then transition, because you need good habits to transition out of poker. A lot of poker players are really smart intellectually, like logically, they're smart. That doesn't mean that they have emotional intelligence. That doesn't mean that they have the empathy skills necessary to be successful outside of the world. And so your job when transitioning is not to just show up and be like, oh, I beat poker, I can beat anything. That's a fallacy. Not true. Your job is to like be humble, Kappa, and learn from the ground up something outside of poker. That's, in my opinion, the best way for the people who maybe don't have the best habits to do it. It's like you just have to, just suck it. You can't just say, I'm going to transition to poker and not put work in. That's not going to fly. That's not, in my opinion, that's not how this world exists. You earn your way. And that's not to say that other people have advantage. That's another conversation. But specifically for people transitioning out of poker, I think that you can put in work to make a better life for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that, because that was an answer. And I agree. Some people out there, they think it's great advice, and I do as well too. But basically a simple way is say, find something else to do outside of poker to build up better habits in terms of how you're approaching getting better at something. Because a lot of times if you're playing poker and you're unhappy, your habits aren't necessarily the best. So that way, when you try to go do something else, you're probably going to go there with bad habits and a bad system in place. So if you can find something simple to do in your life that you can do on a daily basis, that the stakes aren't quite as high and the pressure's not quite as high, and you can build up some good habits with getting better at that and put that system in place, then you can get yourself to a little bit healthier mental space overall. And then you can take that process and either apply it to poker if you'd like to continue to play poker in some capacity, or you can just be in a healthier way of thinking about yourself and about your strengths and about where you're at with your own life and what you might want to do with your life. And then you can apply that same system to something new up there.
That's correct. And I'd like to add one more thing, which actually goes back to how we were talking about being successful in poker, which is learning the ecosystem.
Right.
A lot of people don't know what the opportunities are outside of poker. And so coffee chats are your best tool. Just like if you're sitting at a poker table with somebody who's done something cool, be like, yo, can I buy you a cup of coffee or can I buy you dinner? And just talk to them about what they do. Mm-hmm. Expand your horizons into the different opportunities that you have. One of the most beautiful things about poker is that you sit at a table with people. And those are humans that are doing things outside of poker. And you can interact with those humans as people, learn about them, and then have that be your database for new, like, so I know people that have transitioned out of poker into finance. I know people that have transitioned out of poker into shamanism. I know people that have transitioned out of poker into being a UX designer, into being a data scientist, into being entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. It's about knowing what your possibilities are. Because what happens, unfortunately, in a lot of poker players' lives is that poker is the bubble. And they feel safe inside of this bubble, but then they start to feel comfortable inside of the bubble. And so you need to have more data to be able to kind of spread out, because you have to know what you're kind of trying to optimize towards. And a lot of the times the answer isn't just one thing. Let's say, for example, you're like, oh, I want to be a UX designer because you heard a cool conversation about it. So you start taking courses on Udemy about user experience. You start learning a little bit of the coding, and then you realize it's not for you, but that you loved the process of doing the user research and the human interaction. So then maybe you're like, wait, maybe project management's my thing, because I love I'm really good at I play poker. I'm really good at getting how people think. I can now use this, maybe some of the technical skills I learned from this UX course, and now pivot to project management. It's about like just starting somewhere, getting more information, and then being comfortable pivoting as new things come up.
Okay, Dylan. So let's do that. Let's take care of that one, right? So what you're saying requires a lot of mindfulness, right?
Yes.
You have to be very mindful. You have to have a healthy support system around you. You have to have people holding you accountable, most likely, right? You got to be able to be focused and stay on track with what you're doing. And a lot of it's easier said than done, obviously, because there's a lot of mental hurdles going around when you're trying to transition out of poker, because poker has given you a living for so long that when you start to learn something new, right, you need to be able to make a living at it too. And a lot of times for successful poker players, they're not going to be able to make as much money as they did at this new thing straight away. And oftentimes they're going to have to grind and put in hard work for a prolonged period of time in order to get back to a point where they might have had a lifestyle or the freedom or the ability to make as much money as they used to make. So what kind of advice would you give to that person who is grappling with that mental challenge of trying to figure themselves out and trying to have these expectations for themselves that they can't quite reach from a financial and a success level due to what they've achieved in poker?
Really?
Dylan froze.
Oh.
You out there, Dylan?
I hear?
Big D, you there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but you're frozen.
Here, give me. I can fix it.
You might need to come back and come back in. Oh, he's back. Oh, no, wait. No, he's frozen still. Oh, no. Okay. Wait, what's he doing? I don't know.
Internet, why you die? All right, we're back.
I can hear you.
Can you see me?
I can see you.
Okay, we're good.
Okay.
That's a very good question, and it's something that I grappled a lot with too.
Wait, we're now we're big on me, guys. We're big. Dylan went away. Let's give some shout outs. Let's position myself in here. Let's position myself in the hole. I don't know where he went. The guy went away. Who we got in the chat? Pocket Pool 76, Moonlight Master, Flow Junkie. What's up, guys? What's happening? T-Dubs 224. We're zoomed in on my face. Look at this hat. I mean, is this hat not amazing? I love this hat, man. Oh, I love this hat. Vishal Sharma, is it unfair that the subscribers of the PL Lab have to pay again to access this course? Vishal, listen, man, you're asking the great questions. Welcome to how these people operate business. They give nothing away for free, baby. Okay? That sounds like a great world to live in where you pay one price, you get everything forever. I agree with you completely. I'm all on board with it. That's why I'm a shitty fucking businessman, okay? Kenny Powers, this is a big spot for Joey. A lot of cash at stake. Can't start laughing at this guy's at all rants. I talk to Dylan more than I talk to almost anybody else out there. I'm very used to these sort of discussions. I love them very, very much. And I think that they are a lot deeper than most people are interested in or willing to go. And whether you agree or disagree with them or not, they're still very interesting to think about. And it's exactly how I think about it here too. Knife 9, what's up, bad gamer? My man, Fireman, sliding down that fire pole. Listen, Fireman Scott, treat me like a fire pole right now and slide down the middle of this bad boy. Slide down the middle while you visualize success. And live at the bike this week, Fireman Scott, slide down the middle here with this little line. Come from the top, work your way down the bottom wearing fireman suit, fireman. Okay? Work it in your next blog. And we're excited. We're excited to see what's happening here. Oh, Dylan's back. Okay.
Wait, am I back?
You're back. Are we back or what? Are we back? Are we fucking back or what?
I hope so.
You know what's funny, Dylan? I'm going to be honest with you, right? So I listen to some of these other podcasts that people, they're like, oh, this podcast is so good, right? But most of the times what makes it good is somebody's just sort of like, they're getting really deep and really vulnerable, and they're talking about, right, depression. They're talking about the anxiety they go through, and they're talking about the ups and downs and failures, and they're being very personal, and they're sharing very relatable thoughts, and these relatable deep thoughts, and they're able to articulate it in a way that really connect with the audience in a way that they're not used to hearing, because a lot of content out there is designed to only go surface level for the most part. And then people say, oh, this is like revolutionary shit, man. You're talking about how you tried and you fail and stuff like that. And then when I think about doing stuff like that, it slightly excites me. But then I greatly enjoy just having a good time for the most part on my podcast. So it's a constant battle I have with myself in terms of, right, do I want to calm down a little bit? Do I want to get deeper and get more personal and talk about these deep thoughts about conquering life and conquering your emotions and being healthy with your relationships or being healthy with your family? But then my man Fireman Scott comes in here, and I just want to keep making jokes about him sliding down the fucking fire pole. You know what I mean? So it's this constant battle I have internally with myself in terms of how I would like to approach myself and my content. And you can see that in the way that I'm all over the place in terms of where my focuses are, because just never really enjoyed staying focused on quite one thing. So that's neither here nor there, but it was just something I realized as you left and I was making fireman jokes about Fireman Scott sliding down the fire pole to victory. So that's what we got.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Why not do both? Is the way that I would kind of articulate that, because I think that you have so much to give to others from the shit. I'm sorry, you said it out loud. I'm gonna give you an answer. You have a lot to give to people in terms of the things that you've moved through, and by opening the space for you to be vulnerable, it allows the people on your podcast. Like I feel super comfortable just expressing my being right now because you create the space for it, right? And so you can do the like Fireman Scott climbing down the pole at the beginning, at the end, whatever the fuck you want, but that doesn't mean that you also can't be open and get into the deep shit, because you're right. It makes people feel good to hear that the humans that they perceive as being successful are also humans and also go through challenges, and that people like you and myself and other people that might be in the spotlight, they also have the same human challenges that other people do. We might be more fortunate to have been introduced to tools to approach those challenges more than other people. Maybe we have more time to work on them and shit like that. But it's like, if you have the ability to do it, I think that that's a gift that you have to give.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's some bullshit, and you know it. You're saying I don't think so.
I have to give. I'm not giving that gift. I'll keep the gift with me. I'm gonna keep the gift internal in myself, man. You know what I mean?
And that's fine too. I'll go back to where I'll give the gift then. Let's go back to where I was before I cut out in terms of like helping people.
Do you think that Fireman Scott should be allowed to play on Live at the Bike if he doesn't wear a fire suit? Because I don't think he should be.
You know, I'm not sure. We can defer to the Live at the Bike crew, but they might say that. They might say he needs to be in one.
If I told you Fireman Scott paid me $1,000 to shout him out this much on the podcast, would you believe me or would you not believe me?
Ooh. I don't think you'd take the money. I think you do it for the jokes without the money.
Well, I mean, listen, if he wanted to give me $1,000 for me to shout him out, I'd consider taking the money, right? Shout #King, but it's what it is. So let's continue on, Dylan. Get back to what you're talking about. Let's go.
So just to reiterate, the question I think goes a lot am I here? I'm here. Right. Okay, cool. It goes into like shame, our interaction with shame, and like how we perceive ourselves. So something that has been really helpful for me as a tool is someone named Brene Brown. She's a shame researcher, and a lot of the vocabulary and the tools that she communicates around are interactions with ourselves and how, like, literally our self-talk. How do we talk to ourselves? And if I could give advice to people that are struggling with that aspect of their game, like, you're allowed to be self-critical without being self-hurtful, right? You're allowed to want to get better. You're allowed to want to improve. You're allowed to put work into it without beating yourself up for it. And I think that if I could point people in the right direction, it would be towards Brene Brown. I actually talk about, I made videos specifically for this with poker players in the professional fundamentals section of our course, because I think it's incredibly important. I think that in order to transition out of poker, in order to be able to have a sustainable and a healthy life, you have to rebuild the relationship with yourself and how you talk to yourself and how you interact with yourself. And as poker players, we're just so tuned to getting things wrong often and to losing often that we heavily over-index into this feeling of like being bad or shaming ourselves for getting things incorrectly, especially those of us that have been successful, because a lot of the times you need to like be self-critical in order to get better. But there's an inflection point there between being too self-critical into the point of being self-destructive.
That's me.
But yeah, it is you.
That's me.
It is you. Dog, I've been saying these words to you for half a decade.
Well, I mean, I'm aware that that's me. What if you're aware that that is you? Then what do you think? Then what do people do?
It's hard because if you're aware that it's you and you still can't change it, there's some deep rootedness there. And there's no easy fix. A lot of it is like literally therapy. I go to therapy to have somebody who I trust reconstruct some of the ways I approach situations, give me a perspective that I can't with myself, and then very, very slowly over time.
What is this? It keeps freezing, Dylan. He's frozen again. And it's frozen.
How about?
And we can't hear him. Don't tilt, Dylan. Don't tilt. Internet tilt. Listen, internet tilt, guys, is one of the most tilting things in the history of life itself. I agree. If you're watching this back on replay, make sure you guys fast forward over. G. Harvalot, thank you very much. This is really good wisdom. Thank you, Joy, for hosting this pod. Thank you very much. Happy to have Dylan, his frozen face here right now. Yeah, he's a little frozen right now with the Zoom here, so we'll try to get him back in here right now, and we'll see what happens here.
I'll be back.
What'd you say? I'm tilting right now, but I'm holding myself in.
Me too. Yeah.
Breathe with us, guys. We're practicing. What's up, Reno Grinder? What's happening? Breathe. Dylan, what's up with the internet? Are you on Wi-Fi on there?
No, our internet. We literally have spent a lot of money trying to fix our internet, and it just sucks in our area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not good.
Oh.
We might get you back.
A little better here. I'm gonna
try going out and come back in again.
Okay, one more time.
Sounds good. Get money from the course to buy good connection. I agree. Listen, man. He was too self-critical or broke the Wi-Fi. That's not even funny. Come on. Let's see. Let's wait till Dylan gets back in here, guys. Who else we got in here, man? We got the Spraggy podcast coming up next week, guys. We got all high-stakes PLO videos all this week, me and Dylan, on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Oh, my God. What is happening here? Okay, this is a 3-1. I was not prepared for a 3, Daddy. Oh, boy. Yeah. Okay, let me see if this works. Wait. What the hell is happening here? Okay, how do I can't remove your other one. No, oh my God, this is a sim. I'm shook right now. I can't get this one out of here.
Right. Wait, really? Here, I think.
We got it. Okay. Oh, thank God. Okay, we had one stuck one here. Oh my God.
One of me is plenty.
This is tripping me out so hard. Okay, continue on with your thought, Dylan. You were talking about
So just if you're having trouble, and if you're one of the most challenging things actually is when you're aware of what your leaks are and you can't get out of them, because you have the awareness, but you don't have the ability to dig yourself out of the hole, and that becomes extra infuriating, right? It's like you're no longer ignorant to what your leaks are. You're aware of what your leaks are, but you don't have maybe the self-will, or you have so much trauma built up from what those leaks are over time that it just takes a lot of patience, I think, is the answer.
Right.
It takes the awareness, it takes self-love and accepting that it's okay for you not to be perfect. It's okay for you to have these leaks. And that when you stop shaming yourself and being upset at yourself for not being perfect, for having the Superman complex, you can slowly start to unravel it. But if you are like constantly mad at yourself for not getting better, that's just as bad as having that leak. You're adding extra weight to yourself. And so like finding self-compassion and finding self-love in a way that isn't fake, like is true, like you can feel that you're like you like so one thing that I learned in an ayahuasca ceremony was that let's say somebody's having a really hard time with something and they maybe are negatively affecting your experience. Like let's say like you're in a really vulnerable space and somebody's like throwing up or being really loud, and our initial reaction a lot of the time is to be angry at that thing. But what they teach you in these ceremonies is to send love to it or to send good energy to it. Like I know this is kind of wooey, but you can approach it in a applicable way as well. So instead of like being mad at your depression or being mad at your anxiety, if you can try as hard as you can, and this is where therapy comes in, is like sometimes you literally need a tool to do this, like you need another person to help you with it, but to try to find acceptance and to like send love to the thing that you perceive as your biggest weakness, that's how you start that slow process. And then you can use patience, like very, very slowly being okay with not being perfect or having whatever this leak is, and like let it unravel over time. But you can't force it. Like that's just not how it works from my perspective and in my experience.
Yeah, I think one of the massive challenges with this is like this all sounds good theoretically, but as you start to scale up your life and add in more to your life, and when you're focused on doing this, which is what happens when you take time off, which is what happened with me when I took time off, it was pretty easy in some ways. Once I learned and studied and got the knowledge and how to have this type of mindset, it was easy to make sense of it all. But without a constant support system around you in terms of the environment you have in place, the people that you spend time with on a daily basis, and the content you're taking in on a daily basis, unless you continue to manage that very, very strongly, I think it can be easy to let these sort of emotions or habits or thoughts creep back in. And that's certainly what's happened with me. So the only option I really see is I got to quit. I'm going to have to quit everything I'm doing and reorganize my life in some way, because I think the structure of my life is not very conducive for maintaining and building on a healthy way of overall thought about myself and about my life, because I'm just taking in too much stuff from Twitter, too much stuff from YouTube, too much stuff from Instagram, with my audience that I have, with people out there that are sending in good support and bad support. I think that I just can't have that much going on in my life in order for me to sustain that type of mindset. So that's the point I'm at in my life now, where I'm trying to decide, well, what do I want my life to be about and what I want it to be, because I know it cannot keep continuing in the way it is right now, because there's just way too much stuff. You take in so many words up there from people into your subconscious that it's hard to not let the positive and the negative impact you no matter what. So that's actually the biggest challenge I personally find right now.
And that's in my heart.
Dylan's froze again. What'd you say, Dylan? Dylan's frozen.
And I feel
he's frozen again.
No.
He's frozen again. He's frozen again.
Now?
All right, I can hear you a little bit.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
But I'm just saying that's real. That's like a very challenging struggle. And I appreciate you sharing it. I have a poker analogy, I think, for this particular. This isn't going to solve your. It's mostly just like a framework thing. People on Twitch ask me how many tables they should play when they start playing. They say, should I play like 2 tables, 3 tables, 4 tables? And the answer is always to start with 1 and to add more tables as you feel comfortable, and to lower tables as you start to feel less comfortable. And so that's very similar, I think, for what we're describing right now, where it's like you probably are playing too many tables currently. So does that mean you need to drop all your tables and start at 1 again? Maybe. Does it mean you just need to maybe slowly drop the amount of tables that you're playing until it feels comfortable? That's another mechanism of doing it. There's like if you just feel completely out of whack, then yes, restarting from 0 is good. But another solution might just be to slowly remove things until you find the appropriate equilibrium point. But for those of us who maybe aren't doing what you're doing, they haven't started from 0 before, I think that's like a really good first answer. Is you have to build the fundamentals before you can start playing more tables. Mm-hmm. So don't play 5 tables until you're good at playing 1 table, kind of a thing.
Makes sense.
That's the way that I think about it, at least. But yeah, dude, I struggle with the same thing as you.
See, here's kind of messages I get a lot, Dylan. I'm going to tell you, this is what it's like, right? We got my man Tim Grady, right? This is kind of messages I get all the time from people, too. Just one of the types, right? Most of them are like this, right? Tim Grady, Joey, would you accept a Skype call with me? It could save my life. I'm a good person, but I am alone and isolated, just me and my melanoids. I get these kind of messages a lot, Dylan. So do you know how overwhelming it is in some ways to deal with messages like this a lot from people when and then if you don't help them out, they're going to blame you for not helping them out, which is what's happened in the past with me too. It's just, I just, all this stuff, trying to make sense of this all, right? The obvious thing is you can't help everybody out, right? You want to keep yourself healthy first before that. But those are one of the biggest challenges I've faced, is like, you get so many requests and so many desires for your attention. They're not necessarily in a negative way, but they're constant and they never end. And the more you scale up yourself as a person, I guess, right, in terms of like publicly, the more and more and more and more and more and more and more that you get. And it literally never ends if you are in a public place where people can send you messages. So the only option there is to just remove yourself from those places or not read the messages. I don't really know exactly what the possible option is.
Dude, that's fucking hard. Like, because I know you so well. I've seen you and how much you care about your audience. And then the people are like, I think that's something that a lot of people that watch this podcast don't know about you, is like, I've seen you in incredibly intense emotional spaces when negative things have happened to people in your audience. So you love these humans, you care so deeply. And that's one of the reasons why you're able to create this space where people get so much out of it. It's because you want people to feel good. And so I feel that in my heart, just you saying it, because that's so much pressure. That's like, you are one human being. And as one human being, you only have so much internal resources to spread around. And when you feel all of this love and want to share yourself to other people, it's overwhelming when you can't. Like that's just like, because you want to be perfect. You want to be Superman. You want to be able to do everything for everybody. And so I think it makes a lot of sense for you to remove yourself when it becomes too intense, just because that is overwhelming. Literally, the definition of the word overwhelm is too much.
Right.
Like, you feel too much. And so it makes sense to just completely remove yourself. I can only speak for myself in terms of like how to approach that situation. And everyone's going to be different because everyone's mind is different. The way that I've been trying to approach this thing, because this is starting to happen to me too, and I never have had this before, and now that I'm entering the public sphere, where it's been people being very kind and asking me questions, or maybe asking for some of my bandwidth, like even if it's 5 minutes, right? But that scales incredibly quickly. And I know that because I've seen, literally, you and I have been talking about this for whatever, half a decade. And so what I'm trying to do is hopefully build some systems where I can relieve like the bottleneck. So for example, like I'm building out a website right now where there's a contact me form. So instead of putting out my information publicly in terms of like message me on Facebook, message me on Twitter, I'm going to just not respond to messages on those platforms, forward people to my personal website, and then dictate X amount of time per week to going through that, so that I can still get feeling of being connected to my people, so that they still feel as if they're getting to interact with me, because I want to, like, I care about these humans. They're real human beings, and I want to be able to teach them and have them learn from me in the same way as you. But I can't do that if I burn out. And so my answer, which is my answer to literally everything, is to processize and systematize it, because that's the only way I know how to be effective. And I think that it's a journey for every person to figure out how to do that for themselves. But I'm actually really happy that you shared that, because I think that a lot of your audience doesn't have empathy for because it's hard to know what it's like to be in your position, to be Joe Ingram, and to have that many humans want a piece of your pie. It's like, it's fucking overwhelming.
I would never do this again, in retrospect, right? And then you could say, well, then why wouldn't you just get out of it now? And believe me, that's what I'm trying to figure out, what exactly the way to go upon that mentally. So it's just like getting out of poker, getting out of whatever, right? My future will be mainly behind camera and not public, right? I won't be sharing any thoughts. I wouldn't even have any public anything if I wasn't doing content. It wasn't really good for business. So I get it in my mind that it's good for business to stay active in these places. And I also enjoy the community, and I enjoy certain aspects of it, but a lot of it's super overwhelming. So I need to learn how to scale that back a lot, because this is a big reason why I want to take a break from what I was doing for so long, was because I just took on too much to handle myself. And I really don't even know how to dial it back, because I've always 24 tabled, right? So I've always mass table. I've always done a lot of things at one time. That's just the way I've always gone about doing it. I haven't necessarily had the most success 24 tabling, because I've had more monetary success at the actual game itself, in terms of with a win rate. Once I stopped 24 tabling, I started crushing at poker. So, and I'm sure it's like that with life too, is once you stop trying to take on so much and you start scaling it back, and you figure out the parts of your life that are the most important, or the most that'll lead to the most efficient way for you to try to live the life that you want to live. Once you identify those and focus on those, then you're probably going to start seeing a lot of success. It's just a matter of getting to that point. And I think what your therapist said, bringing it back completely, is very, very accurate, in terms of just understanding that if you sprint every single day, you're going to break down. And that's why you need to take time off, and you need to take some balance too.
That's so real. And I appreciate the point a lot. The problem, or the big problem that I have, I have people ask me this question. It's a question that I try to figure out myself in this portion of my life, especially for maybe you've already had some success and now you're trying to find your next step, or maybe you're trying to find your first step, kind of a thing. How do you go about solving that question? How do you go about listening to yourself? Like, am I optimizing towards money? Am I optimizing towards career growth, X, Y, Z, or whatever? And it's up to you to learn what your priorities are and to be aware of yourself and to talk to yourself and not just autopilot. So two metrics that I've found that are incredibly important, and these are actually money agnostic. I would say obviously that having monetary stability makes everything else easier, just because you're not focused on surviving. You're not focused on your monkey brain's not going crazy that you won't be able to sleep or eat somewhere. And so getting that figured out is definitely important. Obviously, over-indexing into it has positives and negatives, and I don't want to have that discussion here. But the things that outside of money I found really important for evaluating whether or not what I'm doing is correct is, how do my days feel? Like when I wake up in the morning, am I depressed? Or am I like, okay, I'm going to do this thing today. And then I'm able to like do my morning routine, and I'm able to stretch, and I'm able to take care of myself. Like, do my days feel good as I'm living them? Is one really important metric. And the other one is like the feeling of gratitude. Like if I am able, like recently in my days, I've just felt sporadic gratitude. Like it comes, spontaneous, excuse me. I just will feel spontaneously grateful for things, for like I was sitting in my Twitch stream a couple of days ago. I was losing at the time and on my session, but I was just so grateful that I could be living the life that I was living at that moment. I had 500 people watching me 2 weeks into Twitch streaming, and was just like stoked on it. And then was grateful for my home and grateful for like the life that I have and my people and everything like that. And if you are feeling gratitude spontaneously at some frequency, that's a really good metric that you're on the right path to something. I don't know what that is, but that is one of the only true things that I've learned for myself, is that like gratitude's a really good barometer for your success, quote unquote. And if you aren't feeling gratitude, that's okay too. Like you can't make that happen, but it just means that maybe you need to rechange your system, or it's your job to refocus on whatever you're working on at this point in your life.
Well, it's definitely my job for sure, is to refocus whatever I'm doing with, and that refocus starts after the end of this week. So,
I'm speaking of which, I am grateful to you for going. Dude, this is probably the biggest sprint of like some of the biggest sprint of both of our careers, right? Just like this 1 week, not yours, mine. It is for mine. No. Like I think
the time I played 600,000 hands in a month, so I had to play 16 hours a day, 24 tabling. That was a harder sprint.
I've been working 14 hours a day, literally.
Well, you've been sprinting pretty hard at the course thing. What are you doing?
Yeah. So I've been making.
Sitting down?
It's like, what's up? I didn't want to stand anymore. I've been standing for 2 hours.
After the end of this week. So
it's like, not only am I streaming Twitch 6 to 9 hours per night, 5 nights a week, I'm also doing everything else that I was already doing, which includes like content, project management, product development, thinking about my next projects, building out a personal website, maintaining my personal relationships, like trying to get outside, take care of my body, do self-care. Like it just takes so much bandwidth to be, and this would not be sustainable. Like I couldn't work this hard every day, obviously, for my whole life, but I like sometimes you just got to get after it and then you take a break. and so I'm happy that after this week you're going to take some time to reevaluate, because I just want to, like, my life will be happier with a happy Joe Ingram in it, just because you bring me so much positivity, and I want to see you. Like, I know that you could succeed in whatever you do, but I want you to feel good about your days. Like that would
good
make
about
me
the days. I like that goal. You know what I like doing? I like taking edibles and then walking the strip. That's the way I love spending my days. Those are fun. Stress-free, very stress-free. You walk around, you enjoy the town, you enjoy what the town's got to offer, you take some food, you watch some people, you have some random conversations with people like that.
I have very similar stuff. Taking an edible, I think we're good.
I think you're good.
Okay. For me, it'll be like taking an edible, hanging out with M, like being on a foam roller for 1.5, stretching, listening to an audio, going on a walk, like just putting yourself in the head, like, and obviously I don't have to take an edible, but like just putting yourself in a headspace where there's nothing to do. You don't have to do anything. Like you're not executing on a task. You're giving yourself the space to just not do anything and to breathe. And that is such a beautiful feeling. And I think that what's really that feeling is when the thing you have to do also feel good, right? Like I'm stoked currently because I'm not burnt out yet on like the things I have to do. Like this is work right now, getting to come on a podcast and talk for hours. Like I'm stoked on that.
Right.
This is something that is plus EV for me, and that makes that means that I did something right.
I'd be stoked if it wasn't cutting out every 10 seconds right now too. So we gotta wrap it up soon though, because this is bad audio quality, and I don't want to make people kind of listen to this in the back end, even though what we're saying is very interesting. So next time we'll have you come over to my house, and we'll do it in person, because that way I think we won't have any lag, and it'll be a little bit different of a conversation. So let's get a couple questions from the chat though.
I'm done.
Justin Berg, this dude has a different way of living. Yes, 100% agree. Which is why it's great to have him on the podcast, because he approaches life very differently than a lot of people that I know. No doubt about that. 100%. 100%. So let's say a question or two from the chat. Dylan, do you have a number one piece of poker advice you might give to some people out there?
Don't focus on your results. Focus on the process.
Can you explain that a little more? Don't focus on results. Focus on process. How would you do that in reality?
I would give myself a bankroll. Let's say I'm starting with a $500 bankroll. I wouldn't focus on making money. I would focus on building a system that will make me better at poker. And because from there, the results will come. If you're looking at your account every 30 seconds to see if you won, you're taking mental bandwidth away from getting better at the game or thinking about the hands. And so if you can focus on building the process to get better at poker, which means finding the appropriate training tools for what you're studying, like doing research into finding, if you want to get good at home tournaments, do your research and find the best tournament course for whatever your bankroll is. Like there's tons of free resources. Start there, scale up. Don't look at what your account is as your metric for success. Look at your thought process in the middle of hands. It's like, are you starting to think more clearly when in a situation? Do you have a thought process that's more defined? Because that's going to be a much more accurate representation on how successful you'll be at poker versus how much money is in your account, because variance is real. And as poker players, our job is to remove the noise of variance in order to evaluate how successful we can be.
Okay. Do you have a tool for maybe remembering this in time when we're in that session and we start thinking about how much we're up or we're down, or we start thinking about how much we're up or down for the month? Is there some type of exercise or some type of a reminder that we could potentially give ourselves when it gets to that in the moment, even though our game plan and our study might lead us to go into it with that sort of approach, but old habits come into place and then we start going through that mental struggle in game and that goes out the window?
I struggle with this too. One of my worst leaks for my entire career is opening up my account and looking how much I'm up and down during a session. Mm-hmm. I started doing this. I had been doing it for years. Then during my Twitch streaming, I'm starting to do it again because that'll dictate what stakes I'm allowed to play. And it brought this bad habit back, which is not healthy. So I can only speak for what's worked for me, which is creating physical reminders, like putting a Post-it on my computer that just says the results don't matter. Is something that is important to me. I have a bunch of note cards and stuff like that. If you can, like on WSOP, you can block your account balance. I'll literally just block it out so that even if I open up the cashier, I can't see how much is in my account, to force myself to remember that it's not important. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to give you a quick fix for it because I still struggle with it. Those are my tools though.
Okay. Couple questions in the chat. Moonlight Master, is Dylan interested in staying on Twitch for a longer time?
That's a very good question. I've gotten asked that a lot. I'm going to keep streaming until after my bankroll challenge.
Okay. I
haven't committed to how long I'm going to be on Twitch. It's not going to be my career, is maybe a good way of saying it. Like I enjoy Twitch, but I'm not going to be a full-time Twitch streamer. It's not the most plus EV thing for me, both from a financial or from an emotional balance perspective. I do want to try to make it such that Twitch is something that is consistent in my life, at least for some period of time. But I'm not going to drop everything and be a professional Twitch streamer. It's not the right play for me.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean I'm going to not keep playing.
Right, but you'll still stream on Twitch for the foreseeable future in some ways, and then once you finish the bankroll challenge, then you might stop. You're going to decide what you're going to do from there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. See what else we got up here. Physics says, how does Dr. GTO prepare for sessions?
It depends on the day. So if I'm doing a good job, which I don't do every time, like I'm not perfect. I don't want to speak from a pedestal here and say I do everything right every time. But if I'm doing a good job, I will have at least meditated once that day. I will have stretched. I will have gone on a walk, and I will have done some sort of studying. And that can either be like doing hard studying with Chris. Like Chris is the person that I talk the most with poker.
The surgeon.
And so, yeah, the surgeon himself. I just trust him more than anyone else in terms of being able to make my game better. So it'll be having conversations with Chris, going through some sims from a spot that I played the day before and really trying to understand it better if I didn't get it. I've made flashcards for myself, like literally to make myself better at pre-flop. So it's like, here, what are my rainbow queens? Like, these are the rainbow queens that you have at what frequency. It's like doing flashcards and trying to be that at least for 30 minutes to an hour pre-session. And then taking a little break. So doing that and then doing something like stretching. So I'm studying a little bit, and then I'm stretching, and then I'm going to start playing. So because like showing up just having had studied, let's say that you didn't do that good job of studying that day, it's going to put you in a negative headspace before you get into starting to play. So I try to create a little bit of distance there.
So run that one more time. You study before you play, or you don't study before you play?
I do study before I play, but then I take a break.
Okay, you take a break.
Yeah, so I'll go on a walk, or I'll stretch, or I'll eat some food, or I'll hang out with somebody in my house, or go out somewhere. It's like study, take at least like a 30-minute break, and then start playing.
Okay.
Is for what has worked well for me personally.
Okay.
And I'd actually say it's not just about what I do right before I play, but like, it has my whole day been healthy. Did I do something for my body? I've been doing floats probably once every other week as like a hard meditation session, and then I try to do a small meditation session. A float tank, yeah. Right. It's been really helpful for me. It forces me to meditate. I'm sitting in a thing for an hour. I'm just going to meditate because that's the most effective way to pass the time. And so it's just about finding the balance between taking care of your body, putting yourself in a position where you can think really well, and then just showing up and executing. And then being honest if you're not executing well. So like sometimes I'll start my stream and not be playing that well. So I'll take a break in like 30 minutes and just like go walk around for 5 minutes and come back. Like you gotta be honest. You have to cultivate the awareness of how good you're playing when you start, so that you can feel when you maybe aren't thinking optimally, or like you're more likely to be playing your B game. So you step away for X amount of time, like maybe like literally go sprint or something, or like go do 20 jumping jacks, get your like reset your cardiovascular system, and come back and keep playing again.
I like it a lot, man. I like it a lot. It sounds like you got to be very mindful to be able to accomplish this on a consistent basis. So having a goal in your life where you are staying mindful and you understand what distracts you from being mindful, and then trying to avoid those distractions would be a very important thing to focus on in order to get to this point, if someone was struggling to get to this point and they wanted to.
That's 100% correct.
Interesting. Okay. I like what I'm hearing. Guys, I'll keep it about 2 hours here. We'll wrap it up here. If you want to find more Dylan, you can find him on his Twitch channel, twitch.tv/cookies1.
Also, I have a website also, just dylanweisman.com.
dylanweisman.com. Okay, so you have a website, dylanweisman.com.
And then Twitter is dweisman11.
Okay, dweisman11. Actually, it's not. It's dweisman13, but
13,
whatever it is,
thanks.
what it is.
You know mine better than me, damn dog.
Well, I mean, you're the one talking about it, is what it is. So, okay, so
good job.
That's what we got. If you guys like the video on my YouTube, make sure you guys smash the like button. It really helps out the channel. If you didn't like it, then I'll know, and then I decide from there, right? So find it on iTunes as well. The giveaway is going to end for people that sign up for the course, for the Upswing course that Dylan's a part of on this Friday. The course goes away. There's a $400 live pot limit. The $400 value for the live PLO dominance. I don't know what the fuck to say it. What do we say it?
Live PLO dominance. It's literally taking.
I'm terrible at it. Go ahead.
No, it's good. It's actually a really good course. It's how to beat live poker in 2020. It's a course. It's really good.
How to beat live poker in 2020. Tunes as well. The giveaway is going to end. So that's a free value if you buy it before on Friday, correct?
That's exactly correct.
Okay, you can check out more in the link below. And I think that's it. That's what I got. I'm going to be back tomorrow with a new video with my man Dylan. We're going over some more high-stakes pot limit hands. Tomorrow is either going to be the hand against Jeans 89, where I played against him, or it might be my biggest pot of all time ever played, or it'll be a hand against Pat, man. I don't know if I want to do a winning one or a losing one. Did I even win any of these? I don't even know.
Yeah, you did. You won the. You did win one.
No, don't tell me which ones I won.
I just said
even
you won
if they
one
saw
of
the
them.
video, they probably already know which ones I won if they watched one of my videos. But
yeah,
Yeah, I'm not sure which one's going to go tomorrow, but we got videos. Dylan's going to be on live at the bike Wednesday and Thursday playing high stakes Putland Hall. My man Wayne Chang will be in the mix as well, too. Shout out to everybody who left comments, who contribute to the chat. You guys are awesome. Appreciate it a lot, man. Much love.
Much love to everybody. Thanks, Joey. Thank you, as always, for having me here, and thank you for being a good friend. I appreciate you dearly.
Amen. Amen, Dylan. Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you very much, everybody out there. Take care. Peace out. Adios.
Adios.